Welcome back, everyone. This is your host, the DN WhatIf, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into part 1 of What If Deku's sister was adopted and became Bakugo's rival? A special shout out to the original creator, Kamino, for their incredible story. Family is a 6-letter word. Please make sure to show your support by checking out their work. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with a fanfic. Inko never intended to have another child. With her husband seemingly overseas permanently and Izuku's issues with Mitsuki's son, she had no reasoning to want another child in the first place. Izuku was enough for her. Besides, she had no way to have one, she thought. Then came the day she went shopping without Izuku downtown while he was at preschool. She was walking along when she suddenly felt a slight movement by her purse. Looking down, she saw a small hand retracting with her wallet and whirled around to see a little girl staring at her with wide, frightened eyes. The same eyes Izuku had when he faced Katsuki. The little girl gasped and ran off, taking Inko's wallet with her. Inko gave chase and quickly caught up with her, placing a gentle hand on the little girl's shoulder. "I'm sorry," the girl squeaked, handing Inko back her wallet. "You have every right to be angry." "I'm not angry, sweetie." Inko knelt, so they were at eye level. "Why did you take my wallet?" "'Cause I wanna eat today." The simplicity and reality of that statement hit Inko hard. "Where are your parents?" "Dunno." "Do you know where you live?" The girl nodded and pointed down the small alley she'd ducked down. A box sat there with a blanket inside. "That's where I live." Inko's heart tightened. This wasn't right. This little girl wasn't much older than Izuku, the same age if she had to guess. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Kazumi." "Just Kazumi." "Well, Kazumi, how would you like to come with me to my house? I'll make you something to eat and we can talk." "You're not gonna send me to the agency?" "Which agency?" "The one for kids with quirks who don't have parents." "That would be the normal thing to do in this situation. Would you like me to bring you there?"
"No."
"The other kids are mean, and they make fun of me all the time." "Then I won't take you to the agency. Come with me." She took Kazumi's hand and led her out of the alley. They took the train back to Inko's neighborhood, where she brought Kazumi to the apartment and made her a small snack. While Kazumi stared out the window, Inko took in her appearance. Kazumi was small and very thin, most likely from poor nutrition. Her ice blue eyes were slightly dull from hunger. As for her clothes, they were tattered and stained, obviously never washed. But the most distinctive feature the little girl had was her hair. It rippled and flowed like water and was the cleanest thing about her. Hair made of water never has to be washed. Inko let out a sigh and checked the laundry basket sitting on the kitchen table. Kazumi seemed to be about Izuku's size. She grabbed a blue t-shirt and a pair of shorts from the basket and handed them both to Kazumi. "Change into these. You need new clothes, right?" "I guess." "Thank you, Miss Lady." "It's Inko, if you don't mind. And here's a pair of socks, too." Inko watched Kazumi take the small articles and press them against her face.
"Soft."
"I like them." "I'm glad. Now get changed." "Okay, Miss Inko. The bathroom is right over there." Kazumi went into the bathroom and came back out wearing the borrowed clothes. Inko found a couple of hair ties she used in her own hair and smiled. "Would you mind if I tied your hair back while you eat?" "You can if you wanna." "Thank you, Miss Inko." Inko tied Kazumi's hair into pigtails. Despite being made of water, it behaved just like regular hair, minus getting dirty and greasy and tangled. Kazumi sat down and began to eat her snack. "I'm going to make a phone call. Will you be okay on your own?" She took the phone into her room and closed the door so Kazumi wouldn't hear as she dialed a number. The number of the Center for Future Heroes. That was the agency Kazumi had referred to, though the name was just so it sounded more inviting to people looking to adopt. Center for Future Heroes. The woman on the other end stated. "This is Guardian speaking. How may I help you find your future pro hero today?" "My name is Inko Midoriya. I was just downtown in my city, and I found a little girl named Kazumi."
"Oh."
"Kazumi." Guardian sounded sad and a little frustrated. "You're hardly the first person to call about her. She's been one of our more difficult cases. Difficult? She doesn't get along well with the other children, mostly because of the nature of her quirk. We haven't been able to learn much, but there was the sound of a mouse clicking in the background.
Ah.
Here's her file. According to this, her body is made entirely of water, and she has hydrokinesis. The other children don't see her as human because of that. Poor thing. Meanwhile, Kazumi had finished the snack Inko made her and was looking around the apartment. There were a few toys of a hero she recognized as All Might, the #1 hero, and the symbol of peace. She headed over to the window and saw a park across the street, where some kids were playing. For a moment, she wanted to join them, then she shook her head. She had to wait for Miss Inko to finish her call. Then something caught her attention. On the playground, she could see a boy with green hair talking to another boy with spiky blonde hair. From what Kazumi could see, the boy with the spiky hair was pushing the green-haired boy down and making small explosions with his hands. He's going to hurt him. Kazumi ran for the door and put on her old, ratty sneakers that she'd had for a while. Without a second thought, she ran out of the apartment and down the stairs, heading straight for the park. By the time she got there, the green-haired boy was cowering in fear of the other boy. "See, Deku? You can't face me," the blonde-haired boy declared. "You don't have a quirk. You leave him alone," Kazumi yelled. The blonde snapped his head around to look at her. "And what are you gonna do?" he sneered. "I'll stop you."
Go.
"I'll be fine," the green-haired boy insisted.
No.
"I hate bullies." Kazumi puffed out her cheeks and narrowed her eyes at the blonde. So you leave him alone, or I'll use my quirk on you. So, you want to challenge me, new girl? My name is Kazumi. She formed a small water bubble in her hands and prepared to fire as the boy shot an explosion at her. She doused it just in time. "Hey, no fair, water witch. Don't call me that." She soaked him. Her quirk wasn't too powerful yet, so she wasn't able to do much more than get him wet. "You, Izuku." Inko seemed to come out of nowhere as she dashed over to the green-haired boy and knelt beside him. "Are you all right?"
I Phoenix.
He mumbled. Inko then turned her attention to Kazumi, who looked terrified. "Come here, sweetheart." Kazumi obeyed and stood next to Inko, who gazed at the blonde-haired boy. "Katsuki, I'll be calling your mother about this." "Auntie Inko, don't call her? You were hurting Izuku again." "But she got me all wet." Katsuki pointed at Kazumi. She was defending somebody who couldn't stand up for himself. She stood up and took Izuku and Kazumi's hands. "We're going home." "Bye, Kaken," Izuku called as the three of them headed towards the apartment. "Mama, who's this?" "This is Kazumi. I found her while I was shopping. She doesn't have a home, so we're going to give her one, okay?" "Really?" Both children gasped in disbelief. "Really?" They entered the building, and then the elevator. "Are you okay with that, Izuku? Having a sister?" "Yeah. She can go up against Kaken without a problem." "And, Kazumi, are you okay with living here?" "You mean it, right?" "Of course I mean it." The elevator arrived at their floor, and they made it to the apartment. "I wasn't sure until I saw you defend Izuku, though. He needs somebody like you, a friend to be on his side when he's having problems, or somebody to play with. And you need a home and a family. So, why not this one?" Kazumi's lip wobbled, and her eyes filled with tears as she started to sob, burying her face in Inko's skirt. Thank you, Mama."
Mama.
Inko Midoriya had another child. "Izuku, please stay still." "But I'm excited," he protested, jumping up and down as Inko fixed Kazumi's hair into pigtails for the day. "Kazumi's going to be my sister for real now." For a month, Inko had been going through the process of officially adopting Kazumi. Today was the day she went down to the courthouse to get the final paperwork signed so Kazumi would be a Midoriya. The courthouse even allowed adoptive parents to take a family photo once the paperwork was complete, hence why she was bringing Izuku and Kazumi with her. "Our first family photo. All done. Go get your shoes on while I try to wrangle your brother." Kazumi hopped off her chair and ran to the front door while Inko picked up Izuku to try and tame his hair. It proved to be fruitless, though, so she simply grabbed her purse and made sure the door was locked behind them as she headed out the door with her children. The train ride was short but nerve-wracking. After today, Inko would officially have a daughter. And a daughter who loved living with them as much as Inko loved having her there. Her gaze went to Izuku and Kazumi, who were playing some sort of hand-clapping game while they giggled about something that only they knew the meaning of. The train pulled to a stop at the right station, and she took each of them in hand. "Stay with me, all right? Downtown is busy this time of day." Luckily, the station wasn't far from the courthouse, and the kids wouldn't get tired. But as Inko approached the courthouse, she saw a few people waiting there for her. It was Mitsuki and her husband, Masaru, along with Katsuki. Katsuki was slightly dressed up and looking angry as usual, while his mother looked excited and happy. "Inko." Mitsuki greeted her friend. "Mitsuki, what are you doing here?" "Well, it's not every day my best friend adopts a little girl. I thought we'd be here for moral support. Plus, Katsuki's gonna have to get used to having her around." "Thank you, Mini Kaken," muttered Kazumi, glaring at the boy. Inko headed into the courthouse and was shown into the proper room, where a judge witnessed her signing the paperwork and then signed it himself to finalize it. "Inko Midoriya, I now pronounce you the mother of Kazumi Midoriya." Kazumi and Izuku started cheering while Mitsuki gave both the kids a hug. "Welcome to this crazy family, Kazumi." "Katsuki, get over here." He let out a huff and did as his mother said. Kazumi was handed her adoption certificate and told to hold it up for the picture. Her eyes were full of tears of joy, while Izuku and Inko's were the same way. But all three of them kept smiling as the picture was taken. Mitsuki then insisted on getting a picture of the three kids together, Izuku in between Katsuki and Kazumi. Kazumi was so happy to have been adopted that the scowl she usually wore in Katsuki's presence had disappeared in favor of her bright smile. Katsuki chose to smile, too, though his could be better qualified as a smirk. Once that was all said and done, and the pictures had been given to Inko, the two families of three headed off to grab lunch together at a nearby diner. Katsuki sat between his parents at the round table, with Kazumi sitting to his mother's other side and Izuku sitting on his father's other side. Inko sat between her children, helping them read the menu and decide what they wanted. They were even allowed to get ice cream as a celebratory treat. It was the last time Katsuki Bakugo and the Midoriya siblings would be civil for a while. Very quickly, Inko realized something about her adopted daughter. Kazumi had frequent nightmares. Often during the night, Izuku would come and wake their mother up, saying that Kazumi needed help because she was scared. And Inko would go and help her without issue. She never pushed Kazumi to tell her the reason, but one night Kazumi asked her something after she'd been soothed. "Mama, you love me, right?" she whispered. "Yes, I do. And I love you, too," Izuku added, smiling. "And you're not going to get tired of me and leave me, right?" "Of course not. Where did you get that idea?" Kazumi sniffed. "The papa and mama I was born to didn't want me. They left me on a street corner. I keep thinking you're going to abandon me, too." "I would never do that to you, Kazumi. And I know Izuku won't abandon you, either. You're a very beautiful and smart little girl who just got a bad set of birth parents. But you got lucky and found a loving mama and brother to help take care of you and be there for you when you need them." "Promise." "I promise. I promise," echoed Izuku. "Now, off to bed, both of you." "Night, Mama," the two chorused, giggling madly. Kazumi was tagging along with Izuku and Kaken and the other neighborhood boys as they explored a forested area. Kazumi had a backpack on, carrying snacks and water and a first aid kit that Inko had taught her how to use in case something happened. The sight of her carrying said backpack was fairly common in the neighborhood, and it was the only reason Kaken and the other boys let her hang out with them. That, and she was the only girl in the neighborhood who preferred boys' games to that of the other girls. "Forward march and here we go," called Kaken, firing off small sparks as they went across a fallen tree. Members of the agency Bakugo. Sound. He placed one foot wrong and fell into the water below them, making all the other kids look on in worry. Izuku ran down to check on him while Kazumi just followed her brother. She wore a light green t-shirt under a set of overalls with a pair of red sneakers to match Izuku's, her hair tied back in pigtails that flew behind her as she ran. "Are you all right?" Izuku asked, extending a hand as he waded up to Kaken. "Are you hurt? I thought you might have hit your head or something." Instead of accepting the helping hand, Kaken slapped it away, making Kazumi gasp. "I don't need your help." Kaken got to his feet, only to be smacked back by a wave of water. He looked to see Kazumi wading into the water. "He was only being nice," she snapped, throwing her hand as if she was slapping Kaken. And she was only with water instead of her hand. No fair, water witch. Izuku ran and stood beside his sister. "Besides, you're only defending him because he's a quirkless loser." "No, I'm not. He's my brother, and it's my job to help him. Plus, you're such a jerk." The other three boys gasped and ran down to the shore of the small river to see what was about to happen. Nobody insulted Kaken and got away with it. "How about you prove how strong you are then, Water Witch? Bring it on."
Kaken?
Kazumi, spoke up Izuku. "Maybe we shouldn't, fight?" "Yeah." Kazumi nodded. "Izuku and I are gonna play without you." She turned around.
Smoke.
The two got out of the water and headed back onto the fallen tree, where Kaken sent a small explosion to almost set Kazumi's shoe on fire. She screamed as she lost her footing, but Izuku grabbed her hand before she could fall like Kaken had. He was strong for their age, pulling his sister back onto the fallen tree and then helping her to her feet. "Thanks, Zuku," she breathed. "It's no problem, Zumi." They headed back the way they'd come, Kaken yelling insults after the two that they ignored. "You know, Zuku, you're gonna make a great hero once you get your quirk." "You think so?" "I know so. You saved me from falling without another thought."
She grinned.
Izuku and Kazumi, the top heroes in Japan and a team for life.
"Yeah.
Will be unstoppable." They pumped their fists into the air. "It's not gonna happen, kid." Izuku stared at the doctor with tears in his eyes as Kazumi glared at the man and Inko looked concerned. "See, we've discovered something. There's a slight difference in the toe joints of those who have quirks and those who don't." He pulled out 2 x-rays, both were of toes, and one had extra joints. "This right here is your son's toe joints. Quirkless people have those second joints, and we believe it's how you can differentiate between the two. This other one is your daughter's. She doesn't have the second joint, hence why she has a quirk." Izuku started to cry as his sister hugged him, and Inko explained her and her husband's quirks. When asked how her daughter had a quirk that wasn't related to telekinesis or breathing fire, she simply replied with, "My daughter is adopted, but no less my child than Izuku is." On the way home, Izuku was silent, clutching his All Might figure and leaning against his sister. Inko was just as quiet, silently blaming herself for Izuku's situation. And then the 2 female Midoriyas found Izuku watching the All Might video with tears in his eyes. I can be a hero too, right?" he asked, his voice croaking. "I'm sorry, Izuku," started Inko, but she was cut off by Kazumi. "Of course you can be a hero, Zuku," the little girl assured him. "You're smart and strong and brave. All things a hero needs to be. And if people can't see that, then they're big dummies." "Thanks, Kazumi." By the tone of his voice, Inko could tell he wasn't quite convinced. And the fact that the teasing only got worse didn't help. Kaken and the other boys mocked Izuku relentlessly for being quirkless, for being useless, for needing his sister to help in his battles when quirks got involved. But Izuku was fine with Kazumi doing the fighting. She was more hot-tempered and suited for it. No, he was upset because Kaken was right. He couldn't fight his own battles when it came to quirks, and that was why he was okay with Kazumi defending him. Of course, it all came to a head in middle school. What happened? Kazumi ran over as Bakugo backed away from Izuku with a shocked and terrified look. Her brother was cradling his hand with a pained expression, hiding it from her view. She let out a huff of frustration as she crouched beside him and took his wrist in her hand, taking care not to jostle it too much as she surveyed the damage. What she saw was horrifying and something that had been bound to happen eventually, with how often the 2 boys came into conflict. Burns. Kaken burned Izuku.
"What
happened
to my
brother?" she asked Kaken, sending him a cold look as she stated each word emphatically. "Don't look at me, Water Witch." Bakugo started to snap before she cut him off. "You're the only person who could have done this," she yelled. "Nobody else in our school can make any kind of fire." A small crowd had gathered when the burn had happened, and one of the boys' whispers had caught her attention. "Kazumi's not going to like this."
And now?
Now she was pissed at Bakugo, but she was more concerned with Izuku. Use cold water on a burn. Inko's first aid training from all those years ago rang in her head, and she turned her hands to water as she put Izuku's between them. Kaken yelled for her to pay attention to him, but his voice was background noise to her as she focused on her task and let out a breath. "Soothe the burn. Soothe the burn." The water turned colder as she tried to do just that, and Izuku could feel his skin cooling down. The injury was still there, but it wasn't as painful anymore. Kazumi could control the temperature of her water, kind of. He wasn't sure if she could heat it up yet, but if she could make it colder, maybe she could make it hotter too.
Hey.
Water witch. She helped her brother to his feet, then turned towards the cause of the injury. "If looks could kill." "Kaken," she stated, balling her hands into fists. "I'm going to take my brother to the nurse, and then you and I are going to settle this once and for all tomorrow after school, at the park we went to as kids." "You're challenging me?" He looked amused. "What, do you think I can't handle what you can dish out?"
Nah.
"I just don't want to make your brother watch me kick your ass." Kazumi's hair started to steam, like it always did when she was angry. And that confirmed it for Izuku. Kazumi could definitely control the temperature of her water. It was just a matter of her learning to do it intentionally rather than by circumstance. She set down her backpack and pulled out some burn cream and bandages, which she used to quickly dress her brother's wound. Once that was done, Izuku made sure to step out of the way as his sister narrowed her eyes at Kaken. "Actually, how about we settle this now?" Her voice chilled those gathered to the bone. Izuku scrambled to get out his notebook and make a new notation on Kazumi's page. "I like the sound of that." Explosions popped up from Kaken's hands as he prepared to fight her.
Fight. Fight. Fight.
"Fight," the other students chanted. Kaken threw the first attack, which Kazumi dodged with ease. He followed it up with a volley that was nearly impossible to avoid, had she not been made of water. She disappeared as they hit where she'd been standing. "Where'd you go?" he yelled. Suddenly, he was forced backwards by a jet of water and looked to see Kazumi's top half sticking out of a puddle in the ground. "Whoa!" One of the boys in the crowd breathed in awe. "That's cheating, water witch." "It's part of my quirk, asshole." She threw another blast of water, this one more intense, as she surged forward. Her bottom half emerged from the puddle, making her whole again. "You're dead." He rushed towards her, hands sparking, before a whistle blew and got their attention. "Mr. Bakugo." "Miss Midoriya," yelled their homeroom teacher. "Guidance office now."
Phoenix.
Kaken spat on the ground as he passed Kazumi, then lowered his voice. "This isn't over, water witch. You and me. We're rivals now. You better watch your back or I'll kill you. I'd like to see you try." Izuku followed his sister into the building, a little in awe of what she'd done. "Kazumi Midoriya, my plus ultra awesome sister. Quirk, waterworks. Her body is made entirely of water, and she has hydrokinesis, meaning she can manipulate water around her as well. Because her body is made of water, she can turn into a puddle as an evasive maneuver. She can also regulate the temperature of the water she uses, though this ability seems limited at the moment. Weak to cold weather and electricity, due to water body." Izuku sighed as he looked at Kazumi's page. All of this information had been gathered over the near decade she'd been his sister, and some of it had been as shocking to her as it was to him. No pun intended on her weaknesses. Her weakness against electricity had been made obvious when they were in elementary school and they'd been walking home together. A villain with an electricity quirk had been attacking downtown, and though his attacks did little more than stun most people, like about a dozen other people, Izuku had been hit by a massive blast that had made him freeze for a few seconds and left his hair standing on end, but with Kazumi, it was a different story. Water conducted electricity, and Kazumi didn't have much insulation to keep her body from reacting, so she'd been sent to the ground. She'd been hospitalized for a week and had sustained the worst injuries out of anybody during that attack. Even after that, when she'd been allowed to go home, She accidentally shocked Izuku with static electricity for a few days whenever she touched him. As for cold weather, well, water freezes. The first time she'd turned into a puddle had been an accident, too. While playing dodgeball in PE, she'd been the last one on their team left standing, and as a result the other team had targeted her. She was faced with a volley much like the one Kaken had thrown at her earlier that day, and she'd melted before their eyes into a puddle of water on the ground. And rather than punish her for using her quirk, the teachers praised her for discovering a new aspect of it. That didn't happen every day by accident, and Izuku had been so impressed by the fact that Kazumi just shrugged it off like it was nothing. My sister's amazing. And me? I'm a nobody. Suddenly, something flicked the side of his head. You're thinking about being quirkless again, aren't you? Kazumi asked, sitting down beside him.
Yeah.
Kind of hard not to, honestly. Well, it's like I said when we were kids. You can be a hero without a big flashy quirk like mine and Kaken's. You just have to work a little harder. Mom's more of a hero than I am. How so? She rescued you off the street where you were picking pockets. She giggled. I stole her wallet that day. Yeah, I know. She still swears you took a few $100 too. Maybe I did, and maybe I didn't. I'm still grateful she decided to take me in. She sighed. Because of her, I have a chance to go to UA. You're not going to UA, Water Witch. Kaken, gasped Izuku. Kazumi glared at the blonde. Who says I'm not going?
Ido.
Because I'm going, and I don't need you screwing it up for me. You got that. I'm still going. No, you're not. Who's gonna be your rival if I don't go to UA? Kaken opened and closed his mouth, not being able to respond to that. Then he whirled around and left. Kazumi, you're way cooler than I am. No, I'm not. I'm just lucky. That's all it is with a quirk, luck. It's like throwing dice. You can hope for one outcome, but more than likely you're not going to get it. I guess. Don't worry. You'll get into UA too. They'd be stupid not to accept you. But I don't have a quirk. Fuck that. Kazumi, what? You're always putting yourself down because you don't have a quirk, but you've got every quality of a hero that you need other than that one tiny genetic detail. So I say fuck not having a quirk. Kaken's rubbing off on you. EW.
Goals.
How do I get him to stop? You can't.
Damn it.
Who knows, though? Maybe a miracle will happen, and you'll get a quirk somehow.
Ah.
Right. At the time, I brushed off Kazumi's comment as wishful thinking. But now I think she was trying to keep my spirits up because I wasn't happy too much anymore. Besides, a miracle did happen. I got a quirk. And Kazumi didn't even know until the day of the entrance exam. Izuku let out a sigh as he and Kazumi approached UA High. You nervous? She asked him. A little. How about you? Well, I don't know what the practical has in store, but I'm sure you'll do better than me on the written portion. You've always been smarter. But I was helping you study, so you might do better than you think. She shrugged, then a voice caught them both off guard. Get out of my way before I set you both on fire. Bakugo pushed past them, and she glared at his back. Hard to set water on fire, she yelled. Screw you, Water Witch. Listening to his sister and Bakugo bicker was oddly comforting and familiar territory. Kazumi kept walking as Bakugo turned around to talk smack to her. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be a hero. He tripped over his own feet. Or I'll just die. He was stopped just before he hit the ground and found himself floating in midair. Are you okay? Asked a very feminine voice. He looked to see a pretty girl with pink cheeks and brown hair. Internally, he freaked out as he was set upright. I stopped you with my quirk. Sorry for not asking, but I figured you wouldn't mind me helping you. Izuku stammered like an idiot as his sister came back. Geez, this is all so nerve-wracking, huh? The girl laughed. Yeah, it is. Kazumi agreed. See you two inside. The girl walked off and Kazumi looked at Izuku. You okay, buddy? I talked to a girl, he squeaked. Kazumi rolled her eyes. You didn't actually talk, dummy. You stammered. Come on, we're gonna be late. Inside the auditorium, President Mike explained how the practical worked. Izuku and Kazumi had been assigned to the same battle site, oddly enough, while Bakugo was on a completely different site from the two of them. Then, they found out about the 3 types of enemies plus the 4th one. A 0-pointer, that seems odd, Kazumi whispered to her brother. I know, but you'll have no problem with any of the others, I bet. Me, I don't know what I'm going to do. Sounds like a final boss to me. Would the 2 of you kindly stop chattering? Asked a boy a few rows up, glaring at the Midoriya siblings. It is quite distracting. Sorry, Izuku mumbled. With that, they changed into their gym clothes and headed out to the battle center. Kazumi viewed the gate. She wouldn't admit it to Izuku or anybody else, but the gate was intimidating to her. It reminded her of being a child on the streets, going from house to find food. Closed doors, no opportunities. She then glanced at her brother, who was shaking with fear. Izuku, you're gonna do fine, she assured him, putting her hands on his shoulders. You should be focused on the test ahead, stated the boy who'd snapped at them for talking earlier. Not on your friends. Whispers broke out about Izuku being so nervous, everyone writing him off as done for already. Kazumi let out a growl. She hated it when people called her brother weak, because he didn't have a quirk. She thought UA would be different, but here were the other applicants proving her wrong. But when it was time to go in and kick ass, she ran in without a second thought. For 8 minutes, she ran around like a madwoman, slicing into robots with her water or smashing them into buildings with huge jets of it. One almost stepped on her, but she turned into a puddle and evaded, much to everyone who saw shock and awe. Then the 0-pointer arrived on the scene. Her eyes widened. There was no time to think. She turned and ran, then heard a sound not unlike a jet taking off. She whirled around to see Izuku. Her brother was rushing towards the robot in midair and reeling his arm back, taking it out in one punch. She stared in shock, then noticed the girl who'd saved him earlier freeing herself from under some rubble, right where the robot had been about to step. She was reminded of when Izuku had saved her when they were little. Oh my god, he has a quirk. Her eyes teared up. Yep, she was a Midoriya, overdone tears and all. I'm so proud of you. Wait, are your legs broken?
You moron.
He was plummeting to the ground, his legs and right arm broken. She knew exactly what was going through his mind, and she couldn't do anything to stop his fall. But luckily, Gravity Girl had her beat as she slapped Izuku across the face, making him float just inches from the ground before she released him. Then promptly threw up. Izuku, gasped Kazumi, running to her brother's side.
No.
Shit, I'm a bad sister. No. Gotta get 1 point, he whimpered. You can't get any. You're down 3 limbs. And time's up. Izuku looked ready to sob as Kazumi put her hand on where the bruising was the worst, willing it to cool down. She was grateful that he'd figured out that aspect of her power. The cooling down part, at least. Heating up was still spur-of-the-moment anger, but being able to make cold water was useful for soothing injuries. Still, her brother passed out from the shock and pain. Is he alive? The Gravity Girl asked. He's alive. He's an idiot, but he's alive. She sighed. I had no idea he could do that. None of us did. No, I mean, Kazumi was cut off by Recovery Girl arriving on the scene. The youthful heroine healed Izuku without much effort and looked at the girl made of water. Mind taking him to the written exam, Missy? Not at all. Kazumi slung Izuku's arm over her shoulder and smiled. Thanks for healing this idiot. Oh, it's my job to heal idiots. Good luck with yours. Kazumi smiled and headed off. I failed. You don't know that. I failed the entrance exam. I barely passed the written portion, and on the practical I got a big fat 0. Tell me that's not failing. Kazumi cringed. It had been a week since they'd taken the UA exams, and Izuku had been like that since they got home. She hadn't even been willing to tell Inko what she got on the practical out of solidarity for her brother. Focus on what's important. You have a quirk. How did that happen?
Oh,
Could I tell my sister about One for All? Your sister?
Yeah.
She's my closest friend, and I trust her more than anybody else.
Not yet.
You'll need to get used to your power first. Once you have control over it, you can tell her. I guess I'm just a late bloomer. I knew the toe joint thing was bullshit. She looked excited. You were so upset when we were kids. But I knew you could do it. I didn't even make it into UA. Again, you don't know that. Izuku sighed. I'm going to my room. He flopped onto his bed and stared up at the ceiling. When he and Kazumi had hit their 3rd year of elementary school, the family had moved to a slightly bigger apartment in their building, one with 3 bedrooms instead of 2. The reasoning behind the move was simply because Izuku and Kazumi were getting older, and each of them needed their own space. And more privacy. It hadn't been easy to get used to having his own room at first, but he learned to deal with it. Even though Kazumi still suffered nightmares he doubted she'd ever really outgrow, she learned how to deal with them quietly and not wake up the whole household when she had them. Plus, they'd become much less frequent. Izuku, Kazumi. Both teens rushed out of their rooms to see their mother holding 2 envelopes as she looked panicked. They're here. Your test results, she gasped, holding out the envelopes. Each of her kids took theirs into their respective room. And that was when Izuku had one of the biggest shocks of his life. He'd made it into UA. As for Kazumi, well, the fact that she'd also made it in wasn't much of a
surprise.
After all, she had more skill with her quirk and had gotten actual combat points on the exam alongside 25 rescue points for trying to administer first aid to Izuku. Not to mention her brother had helped her study for the written portion. They were also going to be in the same class, Class 1A. Both of them were ecstatic. The Midoriyas were going to UA. The physical tests that Aizawa put them through put Kazumi at the 4th spot for their class and Izuku at the 20th. Miraculously, Aizawa decided not to send him home, and instead, they went back inside to commence with the rest of the school day. After school, the Midoriya siblings were walking home together like they always had. Wait, called a voice. It was the boy with the glasses who had admired Izuku's tenacity. Hi, Kazumi greeted him. I apologize for snapping at you both during the entrance exams. I was very nervous, and your talking wasn't helping. It's fine, Izuku laughed. Besides, we really shouldn't have been talking. Are you 3 walking to the station? Asked a 4th voice. It was the gravity girl who'd had the infinite score on the softball throw. Yeah, Kazumi replied. You want to walk with us?
Sure.
Oh, she clapped her hands.
Ai Mohako Uraraka.
And your Tenya Ida, Deku Midoriya, and Kazumi. Kazumi Midoriya. And my name's Izuku Midoriya. The only person who calls me Deku is Kaken, and that's to make fun of me. That's not very sportsmanlike, Ida mused. I think that it would make a great hero name. Plus, it's pretty cute, don't you think? Deku it is then. You're hopeless, Kazumi sighed. Wait, you said your last name's Midoriya, and his last name is Midoriya. Are you 2 related? We're brother and sister. But we're not related by blood, which is why we don't look anything alike or have similar quirks. Oh, phew. I thought you guys were going to be like, secretly married or something.
No.
I'm pretty sure you'd prefer to marry Kaken, teased Izuku. Okay, that's even more EW no. So, Kazumi, can I call you Kazumi? Ochako asked. Only if you let me call you Ochako.
Deal.
Anyway, I saw that your quirk is water-related. Actually, Kazumi turned her hand to water. My entire body is the result of my quirk. I'm made of water, and I have hydrokinesis. I can also thermoregulate the temperature of the water I use to a certain degree. No pun intended. That pun was totally intended, Izuku snickered. Yeah, it was. But, that's about it. Other than turning myself into a puddle, there's not much else I can do. That's still amazing, Ito insisted. If your body is made entirely of water, then you don't have to worry much about physical attacks. I do, actually. My body being made of water has nothing to do with it. I'd still like to see more of it in action if you don't mind. Maybe during hero training. I heard All Might's one of our teachers. Oh, that's right. This is gonna be great, cheered Ochako. You fucking moron. Izuku bit his lip as he heard his sister's voice. You broke your damn arm. Again. And you almost got yourself killed blocking Kaken's attack. It was bad enough that you passed out. He looked over to see Kazumi sitting in a chair by his infirmary bed. Her ice blue eyes were narrowed, and her hair was steaming slightly at the ends. That was how he knew she wasn't as pissed as he thought.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kazumi. Moron. Sorry doesn't fix your arm. It's like I said, I need to get control over my quirk and this will stop.
Izuku.
You lied to me, didn't you? About how you got your quirk. It's fine. I understand why you won't tell me. The steam on her hair stopped as she sighed. It's not because I don't trust you. I know that. You're not the type to hide things from people you trust without reason. Obviously, somebody asked you to keep quiet. So, I'm not going to pressure you to tell me yet. But if you keep getting hurt, I will be pressing the issue, and you're going to crack like a tennis ball under a hydraulic press. She smiled. You and Ochiko won, by the way. Congrats. How did you do? I was up against Ishido and Aoyama. Yaoyorozu, and I won without a problem. That's good. Recovery girl says you're clear to leave, by the way. Good. Izuku got out of bed and followed his sister back to the classroom once he was ready. As soon as he did, he was accosted by his classmates who were impressed with what he'd done in the exercise. Then both he and Kazumi found out Bakugo had left. Izuku ran out to catch him while Kazumi went with him to ensure things didn't go south. She knew how sore a loser Bakugo could be. Kaken, you can't just give up, yelled Izuku. You hid your quirk all that time, Bakugo said in a low voice, slowly turning around. And you let me think you were weak. You let your sister fight your battles for you. How stupid are you? I wasn't hiding anything. The truth is, somebody gave me this quirk. Kazumi's eyes widened. My body can't handle the power right now, but I'm going to learn. I'm going to control it. I won't be able to become the hero I want to be until I learn how to use this borrowed power. Don't give me that crap. Borrowed power, how stupid do you think I am? Who the hell would do that? Before Izuku could answer, All Might came seemingly out of nowhere. He began to give a speech about pride and potential that Kazumi swore had to have come from a movie or something. Maybe a movie about superheroes? It doesn't matter. Deku isn't my rival, anyway, right? Water Witch. Damn straight. Well, then, the three of you should strive to better yourselves. Now, go home and get some rest. We have a big day tomorrow. Yes, sir. Kazumi nodded and saluted All Might as the hero left, and Bakugo did, too. Better ourselves, murmured Izuku. Kazumi thought of how her brother used his newfound quirk and then put two and two together.
Wait.
Izuku, did you get your quirk from?
Sure.
Not so loud. He put his left index finger to his lips. We'll talk at home. And they did. Izuku explained how All Might was injured and searching for a successor, and how the #1 hero had chosen him for the position. He told his sister about the 10 months of intensive training and cleaning up the beach, and even about the hair. When he was done, Kazumi was quiet. Then she looked at him with tears in her eyes. It's like I told you in middle school, you had everything you needed to be a hero, except that one genetic detail. And now, thanks to All Might, you have that detail you were missing. He asked me to keep it a secret, but you figured it out so quickly, I wasn't going to tell you until I figured out how to control it without breaking my arms. I'm glad you told me. Now I can really be in your corner. You're going to be the next #1, just like you dreamed about when we were kids. Just be careful, all right? I don't want to lose my brother. I will. Thank you, Kazumi. He held out his arms. The cast had been removed before he left school, and smiled sheepishly. Awkward sibling hug. Awkward sibling hug. They hugged each other for a moment, then as they patted each other on the back, pat, pat, they said in unison. With Kazumi in on the secret of One for All, I had somebody at school other than All Might who could help me figure out how to control the power. And like All Might said, I had to help her strive to do better. Even when it was down to helping her figure out how to control the temperature of the water she used. But I didn't realize just how helpful her water abilities would turn out to be when we faced real villains for the first time. And that came sooner than either of us thought. Kazumi Midoriya did not scare easily. From the time she'd been abandoned, she'd learned how to toughen up and defend herself until Inko took her in. Even then, she still didn't scare easily. She had to be brave for Izuku. She couldn't be scared and defend her brother against a world that hated him for a simple genetic element that he lacked. In fact, She couldn't remember the last time she'd been really and truly scared of something real. A horror movie Bakugo had snuck over to their house during a sleepover when they were 5 came to mind, but that hadn't been real. No, right now, Kazumi Midoriya was terrified for her life.
Why?
She was facing real villains who were willing to kill her entire class of barely trained heroes to be. If she hadn't been afraid, something would have been wrong. But at least she was with Izuku and Tsuyu, and not alone. She gazed over the side of the ship at the villains who were waiting for her and her companions to make a move. "They don't know our quirks," whispered Izuku, smirking. "Kazumi, you thinking what I'm thinking?"
Yeah.
"What's the plan?" asked Tsuyu, crouching beside the Midoriyas. "Kazumi, you think you can create a whirlpool?" "I haven't tried it before. I've never been near enough water to do it. Then I need you to cover me. I'm about to do something stupid and full of bravado? I guess. I'd expect nothing less from you." Izuku let out a yell as he leapt over the water, sending a single Delaware smash down to blow the center away. Tsuyu jumped with Kazumi, who used her water blast to keep the villains off Izuku, while Tsuyu grabbed the lone boy of their little group. Without much issue, they landed safely beside the plaza. And then Kazumi froze with fear. There was a giant, lumbering beast with its brain sticking out of its head, growling and snarling as it broke Aizawa's arms like twigs. She couldn't move. Izuku saw the fear in her eyes and gasped. He knew his sister feared very little in this world, so to see her like that was unnerving, to say the least. He decided to turn his attention back to the villains before realizing that the leader, the man with hands on his costume, was reaching for Kazumi. His eyes widened, and he shoved Kazumi into the water, moving to land a blow to the man's gut, only to punch the mysterious creature instead. It let out a roar and froze as Aizawa managed to use his quirk to stop its own. Izuku scrambled to get out of the way, grabbing his still frozen with fear sister. Being made of water meant you were able to breathe in it, too, and see you and running as fast as he could. "It's huge," Kazumi whispered as her brother carried her. "It's gonna be all right," he assured her. And within moments, quite a few villains surrounded the trio. Kazumi realized how pointless it was to rely on her brother to defend her, and instead chose to shake away the fear. After all, the giant creature was nowhere near her. Or so she thought. She was the beast's next target, and it cornered her. Once again, she was frozen with fear. She couldn't even summon any water to splash on its face to distract it for a moment. "I haven't felt like this since." A memory played in her head. Snatches of one. A man with cold, dark eyes and a scowl. A woman with white hair, holding her close. And a boy's voice, telling her to hold on and not to worry. But the man reached for her, and she could hear his voice. "Your quirk is useless to me, you little embarrassment." Then there was a faint memory of her being slapped. Her heart pounded, and she braced herself for the hit. Bakugo didn't make a habit of helping his classmates. To him, it was a free-for-all race, and everybody had to work alone. But Kirishima was actually helpful in getting them out of the earthquake zone, and they arrived in the plaza. There, Bakugo could see Deku fighting off a couple of villains with some of their other classmates. He smirked and prepared to join the fight. Then he heard Deku yell, "Kazumi!" For a split second, Deku looked in a direction before being yanked back into the fight by the villain he was against. Bakugo turned his attention to that direction, and what he saw stopped him dead in his tracks. A lumbering thing that could only be described as a monster was standing over Kazumi. And she wasn't fighting back. For the first time ever, Bakugo saw fear on her face. She was frozen, he realized. If she can't move, this thing will kill her. It's not going to stop. I have to get her out. I can't fight it with her right there. He launched himself forwards with the power of his explosions, praying he would make it in time. Within moments he'd reached her and scooped her into his arms bridal style as he slid to a stop several feet away from where she'd been before. "Keikaken?" she gasped, looking up at him. "You okay, Water Witch?" He grimaced at the gouges that the thing had put in his arm right before he'd escaped. I don't know." She stared at her feet. Something was bothering her, like she was remembering something terrible. "You better stay out of it. You obviously can't fight that thing." It triggered a bad memory. You can tell your brother about it later. For now, stay out of it, and I am here. All Might showed up and Bakugo found himself running for the exit with Kazumi still in his arms. They reached the other students with ease. Izuku, screamed Kazumi, seeing her brother rush to help All Might. Izuku's arm was broken again in the scuffle. Thankfully, the pros showed up and the fight was over rather quickly after that, once All Might had punched the thing to hell and back. And then back to hell. For good. It was when they were outside and waiting for the bus to take them back to campus that Bakugo realized he was still carrying Kazumi. Quickly, he dropped her, and she found her footing before opening her mouth to berate him. Then she stopped. You're hurt. No, I'm not. It's just a scratch. Kaken, there is blood on my costume. Do not go, Holy Grail, on me. She reached into a pouch she had on the belt of her costume and pulled out some cloth. Hold still for a second. Her hand turned to water and soaked the cloth as she reached for Bakugo's injury. He let her use it to wipe away the blood and she winced, taking out some bandages and wrapping the injury in it.
Sorry.
I'm so useless. I couldn't even move against that thing. What the hell is going on with that anyway? Bad memory. I don't know where it came from. Bakugo looked at the blood-soaked cloth in her hand. Even though you're my rival, you still treated my injury. Mentally, he kicked that thought right out of his head and remembered that when they were kids, Kazumi had been the same way, always willing to help, carrying around that backpack with a first aid kit inside. It wasn't the first time she'd patched him up after a fight. You've got to be more careful, Kaken. A 6-year-old Kazumi was putting a small wipe across his scraped knees. I'm the best around, Water Witch. Nobody's going to make me be careful. She didn't respond. Instead, she pulled out a bandage and put it across the scrape. You look so tough, Kaken, gasped Izuku as he caught sight of the bandages already on the other boy's face. Well, just because he's tough doesn't mean he can take down bigger people. We're only in first grade. Shut up. I can beat them. You need to know your limit. I agree with Kazumi, said Izuku. Of course you would, Deku. She's always helping you when you lose against me, because you're so weak. I don't need her.
Fine.
See if I ever help you again, meanie. I'm not gonna need it, Water Witch. The memory was at the forefront of Bakugo's mind as they headed back to UA. He ended up accompanying Kazumi to the infirmary to get Deku, if only to get his own wound checked out. But as they walked, he noticed her hair was starting to steam and her eyes were narrowed.
Ha.
Water, which is angry at Deku. Never thought I'd see the day. When they got to the infirmary, she slammed the door open and Deku jerked up to see her.
Oh, hey, Kazumi.
I thought you said you were getting it under control, she growled. I'm trying, but it's not easy, he fired back. Oh, hello, you two. Recovery girl greeted them. Kazumi, here to pick up your brother again. Kazumi's hair stopped steaming. Yes, ma'am. You need to work with him on his quirk if you can. See if you can help him not injure himself so badly. Yes, ma'am. And as for you, Mr. Bakugo, let me take a look at that arm. He sat down on a chair and Recovery Girl unwrapped the bandages.
Oh my.
Whoever dressed your wounds did a proper job. They even cleaned it with warm water first. That would be me, ma'am, Kazumi stated, crossing her arms as she glared at her brother.
No matter.
Let me fix this. How exactly did you sustain this injury? I pulled her out of the way of an attack and ended up getting a bit of it. Well, if this is just a bit, I'd hate to see what that villain would have done to her if they'd hit her full force. Recovery Girl healed the gouges and smiled. There, good as new. A little scarring, but it'll be fine. Thanks. And as for you, Izuku, you're clear to go. I expect not to see you for a while. Kazumi, keep your brother out of trouble. I'll try. The 3 students headed out of the infirmary and down the hall. All they had to do was pick up their belongings and head home for the day. Kazumi paused for a moment while Izuku entered the classroom first. Hey, Kaken. Yeah? What is it? Thank you. He snapped his head to look at her. She was trembling. That thing, it would have killed me today if you hadn't been there. I was so terrified that I couldn't even activate my quirk. It's because of you that I'm alive. So, thank you. Yeah, well, you being scared is weird, so don't do it anymore, okay? I'll be fine as long as I'm not against that thing again. I'll see you tomorrow. For now, I have to get the idiot home. She disappeared into the classroom with a smile, and Bakugo felt a warm sensation in his chest. What's happening to me? A few days later, Aizawa announced in class that the annual sports festival was coming up, and the entire class started to get pumped up. Kazumi had stars in her eyes as she thought about it during lunch, while she ate with Ochiko, Ida, and Izuku. The sports festival, she squealed. Izuku, and I watched it last year. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. You're so excited about this, laughed Ochiko. I can't help it. I haven't gotten to go all out with my quirk before. This is my chance to really test what I can do, but the combat area will probably be made of cement, so I'm stuck with my body and any moisture that's in the air.
Ah.
Well, isn't that cute? Kazumi looked to see Monoma of Class 1B looking at her with a smirk. The supposed strongest girl among the first years is going to suffer in the competition. Not to mention I heard that you completely froze during the villain attack at the USJ. How is somebody like that supposed to compete against the superior Class B? You froze? Ida inquired, looking shocked. Sorry about him, Kendo called as she dragged Monoma back to their table.
Yeah.
I froze. Kazumi sighed as she looked at her two closest friends and her brother. I think that thing triggered a bad memory from before I was abandoned. Abandoned? Ochiko gasped. I was abandoned when I was a toddler and had to learn to survive on my own. I actually met Mom because I picked her pocket to get enough money for a meal. I ended up getting a home, a mother, and a brother. That's terrible. About you being abandoned, I mean?
Yeah.
But the memory I had, what was it? Izuku asked. It was of my father. I couldn't remember his face clearly, but I remembered him calling me an embarrassment with my quirk and slapping me across the face. I also saw a woman I think was my birth mother, and I heard a boy trying to comfort me. There wasn't much else to go on. I'd say it's a good thing that you're a member of the Midoriya family then, declared Ida. Thanks, guys. Honestly, I think it was pure luck that they took me in. Who knows? Maybe I would have been found by some villain and taken in because of my quirk. Or dead. Please don't talk like that.
Sikhed Izuku.
Okay, whatever. On your marks. Get set. Go, go, go. All of the first years tried to free themselves from the doorway to the obstacle course. Kazumi sighed and turned herself into a puddle, sliding under everyone and managing to make it out front first. And the first one out of the pileup is Class 1, A.S. Kazumi Midoriya. How did she manage that? She was followed shortly after by several other members of her class and several other first years. Kazumi noted how determined Todoroki appeared to be and made a mental reminder to stay away from his ice. Throughout the race, she, Todoroki, and Bakugo were the three frontrunners. The only real challenge she ran into was the minefield, but once she saw her brother fly over the rest of the competition and take first for himself, she was determined to beat him too. She concentrated on finding as much moisture in the air as possible, made easier and more disgusting by the sweat of those who were racing, and making a wave below her, which she rode until she was neck and neck with Bakugo and Todoroki, just a couple feet behind Izuku. Izuku won, and Todoroki was in second. She and Bakugo took third and fourth, respectively. Damn it, Water Witch. Hey, it was a race, wasn't it? She made a face at him, and he snarled. That was amazing, squealed a girl with pink hair and goggles, shoving Bakugo aside and going straight for Kazumi. You have a water quirk, right? Right. So, have you ever considered having a pack of water attached to you so you always have a supply rather than relying on moisture or bodily fluids? My entire body's made of water. Of course, but I mean backup water, so you can do that move. Kazumi gasped. That's what I should do for the one-on-one fights. Just bring some water with me so I have some extra to use. That's the spirit. In the cavalry battle, Kazumi was convinced to join the same team as Todoroki, Ida, and Yaoyorozu and put aside the fact that she had to target her brother. She shot a jet of water at his team and blinded them for a moment while they tried to get the liquid out of their eyes, which gave her team the opening they needed. Her team took first in the cavalry battle. For the first round, She watched as her brother broke free of Shinso and beat the brainwasher with ease. And then it was her turn to go against Ibra of Class 1B. Water versus vines. Let's see how this turns out, sighed Kaminari. Though, doesn't water help plants? Getting Ibra wet isn't going to help anything. I keep forgetting you guys haven't seen her in a serious fight, grumbled Bakugo. She's got a big skill set that's a lot more than it looks. Right, Deku? Right. Izuku pulled out his notebook. Her body is made of water, meaning she can turn parts of it into that base when she needs to if she needs to dodge. That's also why she can turn into a puddle as an evasion tactic. But her main form of attack is huge jets of water, or a precise blade of it, for lack of a better term. She explained that water at a high enough pressure can cut through steel. Whoa, seriously?
Kirishima gasped.
She has two other abilities attached to that. For one, she can control any liquid with her hydrokinesis, not just water. And the other is thermoregulation. She can cool down the water she uses, and when she gets angry, it heats up. Is that why her hair steams sometimes?
Exactly.
Every time I've seen it, she's been angry and raring for a fight of some kind, usually against Kaken. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm rooting for Water Witch to win this match, Bakugo stated. You are?
Yeah.
I'm hoping to go against her before I crush you. I've never been able to go all out against her, and this is my shot to do just that. Ibra made the first attack, her vine hair shooting straight forward in an attempt to capture Kazumi. However, the Midoriya's sister wasn't having it and sliced the vines in half. Oh, impressive. Ibra gasped. Your skills are truly something to behold. I'm just getting started. Kazumi focused on getting enough water to perform the move she wanted to do, then took her chance. She shot a spray of water powerful enough to knock Ibra backwards and out of the ring, but not so powerful as to cause injury. Kazumi Midoriya is the winner of the third match of the first round. Told ya. The Water Witch doesn't go down easy. In the next round, it did end up being Bakugo versus Kazumi. Izuku prepared to pray for his sister's life. Welcome back, listeners. We're here at the UA Sports Festival, where we're about to see Katsuki Bakugo go up against Kazumi Midoriya. Now, before our match gets started, you should know that these two have a history. They grew up in the same area, and they've gone to school together their entire lives. But they're far from close friends. Actually, from what I've heard, this is their first serious fight with their quirks, and I can't wait to see where it goes. Ochako emerged onto the box where the rest of 1A was sitting and noticed Izuku looking extremely nervous. What's up, Izuku? Kaken's going up against Kazumi. This is gonna be big. I remember the last time they almost got into a serious fight. What happened? Ida inquired. Our homeroom teacher stopped it before it could escalate, but that was the day I figured out she could regulate the temperature of the water she uses. My money's on Bakugo, Kirishima declared. Sure, Kazumi is water, but that ain't gonna do much against explosions. But Kazumi can do both long-distance and short-range fighting, so if she can get close enough to Kaken or get enough water buildup, she can knock him out of the ring. Of course, he knows quite a few of her moves, so he might be able to dodge anything she throws at him. Her evasion tactic is kind of invulnerable, though, so maybe she can use that to get close. Or he might wait for her to get close and then throw her out when she reverts back to her normal form. I'm sure she has a few tricks up her sleeve, but what about Kaken's explosions? She's never actually been hit by one, so how would that affect her water body?
Oh, Deku?
Ochako sighed as she realized he was in mumble mode again. How does Kazumi get him out of this state? Groaned Kaminari. It's really annoying. I know, stated Yaoyorozu, grabbing her water bottle. She dumped it on Izuku's head, and he yelped. Thanks, Yaoyorozu, he sighed. I was mumbling again, wasn't I? Yeah, you kinda were. Ochako laughed. I have no idea how this match is going to go. This is the first time they've been in a serious fight using their quirks. Well, that's comforting. Bakugo made the first move. He fired a big right hook at Kazumi, who sidestepped him and doused the fire on his fist with a quick splash of water. He let out a growl, then went for a volley of ranged explosions. She just turned into a puddle on the ground before sending a jet of water his way that he narrowly evaded. Come on, Water Witch, he taunted. Where's that fire from middle school? Fire's more you and Todoroki's thing, don't you think? He threw a punch at her. You're slower than you used to be. Scared of me? As if. She threw one of her water blades, and he narrowly dodged it. It instead gouged the concrete. So, are you going to take this seriously? Maybe you're more like Deku than I thought, and you're afraid to face me. I'm not afraid. She turned into a puddle and popped back up behind him, landing a solid blow to his face and making the crowd scream in approval. Then face me like a hero. He noticed she had red-rimmed teary eyes, an effect of the smoke from his attacks, but he had an idea. You know, you always were a crybaby. Not as bad as Deku, but almost. She narrowed her eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying you and Deku are weak, but he's weaker than you. He landed a blow to her midsection, but she grabbed his arm and threw him like Izuku had the first day of hero training. Don't you ever call him weak, she yelled. He smirked. Bingo. Are you gonna fight me like a hero? Don't you dare. Or are you just gonna sit there and take it like your brother? Shut up. I want to see the girl who almost drowned me as a kid. I want to see the girl who challenged me because of an accidental burn on somebody else. But most of all, I want to see the girl who played into Deku's stupid delusions about being a hero because she knew he was too weak to go anywhere. That did it. Kazumi's hair started steaming and Bakugo felt the water vapor in the air heating up at the same time.
Small.
But to be honest, he never actually considered what would happen to the water Kazumi fought with when she got angry enough for her hair to steam. He should have stopped and thought, hey, maybe steaming hair means her water will be boiling hot. But he didn't. And he was the first official recipient of a hot water attack from Kazumi Midoriya. "Shit," he yelped. He had to keep her off him somehow. Her style of fighting was completely different from Deku's and Uraraka's, and he'd never gotten to see much of it before. But he had an idea. He just continually blasted her. It didn't work, though, and he was being pushed closer and closer to the edge of the ring. She raised her hands to deliver a jet, and he saw his opening. Bakugo grabbed her and swung her out of the ring. There were no other options. Her feet landed outside. That was it. She'd lost. Their first serious fight, and she'd lost. Despite Bakugo winning first place, he had very few job offers. Kazumi felt a sense of victory as she arrived at the train station with her 3 friends, but that faded when she saw Ida's face. She knew he was angry about his brother. She had a brother that she cared for just as much, and she knew how she'd feel if what had happened to Ingenium happened to Izuku. Still, the fact that so soon after that Ida was going to Hosu had her slightly worried. Ida may not have acted rashly, ever, but he was still human. He had emotions and anger just like anybody else. He wasn't a robot. As for Kazumi, she'd gotten several offers, and she'd chosen one that was a bit odd to anybody who knew her. It was a hero by the name of Arachne. Odd, because Kazumi had a thing about spiders. Namely that she didn't care for them. She wasn't afraid of spiders, but she preferred to avoid them. But her brother had an offer from All Might's former teacher. What do you think Gran Torino's like? She asked Izuku once they were in their train compartment with their luggage. I have no idea. But I know All Might's afraid of him. No way. You should have seen him when I was talking about it. He was shaking like I do when I talk Tachiko. And no, that's not what I was going to say. But every time you talk to her, your face turns all red, and it's so cute how you think you're good at hiding your crush on her. I don't have a crush on her. Sure you don't. Look, can we focus on our internships now and my non-existent crush on Uraraka later?
Fine.
Whatever. But you can't hide things from me. I know all your secrets. And I know all of yours. The siblings glared at each other before they burst out laughing. We can't seriously threaten each other, can we? Not unless it involves me breaking my arm. Which you're not doing this week.
Right.
Gran Torino knows about One for All, which means he might know how I can control it without the drawbacks. I haven't had any luck, and All Might doesn't have any ideas either. Just focus on this. We're going out on an assignment as heroes, Deku and Tsunami. Yeah. At Arachne's agency, the spider heroine smiled as she looked at Kazumi. You're a very pretty young lady, and your quirk is impressive. Thank you, ma'am. Now, I understand you want to learn more about rescue than combat. I've seen you fight and you have a good handle on it. Yep, the Spider Lady was a rescue hero. Threads she shot from her fingertips were used to lower herself into situations that most heroes couldn't get into. Not to mention her ability to climb up vertical surfaces made her able to carry people out. It was no wonder Kazumi had chosen her for her internship. But that night, as she laid in her bed, her phone went off just as she was falling asleep. "Hello," she yawned. "Oh, hi, Water Sister. Green Brother. Why are you calling so late?" "Well, I'm at Gran Torino's and he's already beat me into the ground trying to get me to use my quirk properly. I can't believe I haven't asked you this before, but do you have any ideas on how to control your quirk, which nobody else in the world has except All Might?"
Yeah.
So
No, it's fine.
inspiration comes from different places. A lot of my hydrokinesis is based off that old cartoon we watched as kids. You know, the one with the people who had control over the 4 elements. The Airbender show, right?
Right.
I based it on the girl in that show because her work was really impressive. I've been trying, but I don't think that's the same principle as risking broken bones, because you can't control your quirk.
True.
I don't know what to tell you, Izuku, but my quirk has always been under my control. It's my whole body, after all, and that's not exactly something you can... She trailed off as she heard her brother mumbling to himself. "Izuku, are you listening?" "That's it, Kazumi." "What's it?" "I've only been focusing my power on one part of my body, and it's always at 100%. But if I take inspiration from you, whose quirk is your body, and have power all over, then I think I can reduce the backlash." "Well, the percentage you're using might also be a factor, so maybe go easy, say 5%. Don't go all out right off the bat."
Right.
"Thanks, sis." "No problem. And call me if you get it figured out. Arachne's taking me to Hosu tomorrow to do joint training with Endeavor and Manual, so I might not be reachable." "Okay. Love you." "Love you, too." Her phone buzzed as she followed Arachne towards the battle site. A text from Izuku, probably. Upon checking the message, she saw that there were no real words, only a location. She knew her brother. He did not send cryptic messages. "Something wrong?" Arachne asked. I just got a location from my brother." "No message, just his location." "Something's wrong with him. He doesn't send weird messages like this without a reason. Not to mention he's not supposed to be in Hosu right now, but he is." "Go check on him, then." "Something must be wrong. He's in the hero course, too, right?" "Same class." "I'll handle it here. When you get a chance, could you send some pros to this location?" She showed it to Arachne, who nodded. "Now go." Kazumi ran as fast as she could towards the location Izuku had sent her. She was half tempted to use her wave maneuver, but she didn't want to risk missing it. As she ran around a corner, she was suddenly joined by Todoroki, who simply held out his phone as if to say he'd gotten the same message. She smiled. At least she had backup, and it was Todoroki at that. She hadn't admitted it to anyone, but from the moment she met the half-cold, half-hot hero-to-be, she'd felt a connection. Not a romantic connection. The idea of dating him made her dry heave when Ishido had brought it up, but some kind of unspoken bond, like a thread between them that had always been there. It was very similar to the bond she felt with Izuku, but somehow closer. Their quirks complemented each other well despite them never having been paired up before. But when they actually reached the alley, she almost screamed. On the ground, Ida and Izuku were lying, not moving. She could tell they were alive, but above them stood a man who'd haunted the news for months. The man who'd put Ingenium in the hospital. The man who was going by the moniker of Hero Killer.
Stain.
2 more wannabes have come to play? Stain laughed once Todoroki had launched his first attack. "Tsunami. You get the others out of here," Todoroki stated.
Right.
"Don't die." She rushed forward and Stain took out his knife, but she used her evasion tactic to get past him. Cowardly girl. She crouched by Ida, who was the closest. "Kazumi, you have to go." "Hell no." "You think I'm leaving you to die? You've got another thing coming." "Thanks for coming, sis," Izuku gasped. "Wait, how am I supposed to carry Ida? He's super heavy in his costume." "Kazumi, watch out." She turned just in time to see Stain coming towards her. Without time to react, he slashed his blade across her arm, making her yelp in pain. Stain then pulled his blade across his tongue, licking her blood off it and making her cringe before she found herself unable to move.
Damn.
It's just like the USJ. You little coward. Will protect my family. Family. The word struck her suddenly. Do I consider my classmates my family? Is that why? Before she had time to consider what to do, Stain was fighting Todoroki again, and Izuku was back on his feet. It's based on blood type. Izuku and I are both type O. As soon as she could, she rushed over to Native and managed to lift the pro hero onto her back. She had no time to fight alongside the boys. She had to get help for the man, who was close to death as it was. She managed to get him out of the alley and patched up his wound before turning around to help the boys. But then Stain threw another knife at her, and it went through her side, not hitting anything vital but still causing a massive wound. She screamed in pain, and Izuku's eyes widened as he realized what had happened when she went down to the ground. It gave him a surge of adrenaline that he used during the final joint attack he, Todoroki, and Ida used on Stain. "Kazumi, are you okay?" Izuku asked, running over to her while Ida took care of restraining their opponent. "Well, considering I was stabbed, I'm doing just dandy. Todoroki, I need you to do something for me." "What is it?" "I want you to seal up the wound." "How can I?" "You stop the bleeding by cauterizing the wound. It should keep me from bleeding out before we get to a hospital." She ripped her costume enough to reveal the injury, and nothing else. "Only a little bit of fire should do it." He nodded and created a small amount of fire in his hands, which he pressed against the open wound. It hissed and burned the skin around where the blood was, but it sealed it, and Kazumi was no longer bleeding. However, she was weaker because of blood loss, and she found it difficult to get up, so Todoroki lifted her onto his back. "Oh my, Tsunami," gasped Arachne, running up with several other pro heroes. "What happened?" "You kids shouldn't be here," chided one of the others. From there, everything went sideways as a Nomu swooped down from the sky and took Izuku. Kazumi was as shocked as anyone as Stain leapt after it, driving his knife into the thing's skull and bringing it down, declaring he would not allow a true hero to die. As he stood there, laughing, nobody could move. Then he froze. It was over. "You four are so troublesome." Kazumi bit her lip at Gran Torino's words. She and the boys were in the hospital, recovering from their fight against Stain. Her wound that Todoroki had sealed had been treated with stitches to ensure it wouldn't be too troublesome, along with burn cream being applied to take care of the rushed cauterization. However, she'd been praised by the doctor who treated her for her quick thinking to stop the bleeding. "You weren't authorized to cause harm to that villain." But Kazumi didn't touch him. Izuku spoke up. She was more focused on getting the wounded out than on fighting. "Smart girl. You could learn a thing from her." "I still didn't do much," she sighed. "I kinda just got in the way." She sat there, stewing in that thought while the boys were chewed out by the chief of police and their mentors, save for Endeavor, who apparently had better things to do. Todoroki spoke up that she should get credit for Native's rescue over Endeavor, which the chief surprisingly agreed to. Endeavor would be getting the credit for stopping Stain otherwise. And the next morning, that was the headline news. The hero killer Stain was brought down last night by Endeavor. According to police, the criminal was attacking 4 young students from UA High School and the pro hero, Native. However, Native was not on the scene when Endeavor arrived due to the efforts of hero-in-training Kazumi Midoriya, who rushed the injured pro to safety and patched up his wounds before returning to attempt to save her classmates. She was injured, but police say she has received treatment and will make a full recovery by the end of the week. Kazumi stared at her picture on screen. They'd used the photo from her student ID to show her on the news, and she let out a groan. The chief had been serious about giving her credit for Native's rescue, and Endeavor the credit for stopping Stain. "Are you all right, Kazumi?" Todoroki inquired.
"I've fine."
"I'm just bothered. After this, I'm going to have a lot more attention on me than before, and, well, it's a little overwhelming." She glanced over at her brother's bed, which was empty. "Where's Izuku?" "He went to make a phone call. Your mother stopped by earlier while you were sleeping." She thanked me for stopping your wound from bleeding. Well, it's thanks to her teaching me to patch up wounds when I was a kid that I did research into more severe ones. That's how I knew about cauterization. I never knew fire could do something like that. I've always thought of it as destructive. Water can be destructive, too. Even though we need water to live, it can hurt us. Drowning,
Boiling.
freezing. Raise the temperature of it fast enough, and it expands with the force of a bomb blast. And a high enough pressure can cut through steel, right? Right. Izuku entered the room with a happy expression and a blush. So, who'd you call?
Kazumi asked.
I called Uraraka. I thought she might have seen the news, and I didn't want her to worry. I'm the only one of us mentioned by name. She smirked. Ooh, I know why you're blushing. Why? Because you've never talked to a girl who wasn't a family member on the phone before. Kazumi. Todoroki started laughing. He'd never seen the Midoriya siblings outside of school or combat before, so seeing them interact like this was oddly comforting. Izuku spluttered about how he didn't have feelings for Uraraka while Kazumi sang out that he was a liar and needed to confront his crush. Wait, Todoroki can laugh. Kazumi mock-gasped. This is so shocking. Of course I can laugh, he protested. I've hardly ever seen you even smile. I rarely have reason to, but you two make me feel like I can do it more often. Kazumi smiled back, and Todoroki felt that invisible string between them tighten. Finals are coming up. Kazumi had a blank look on her face as she and Izuku walked towards the station with Ida and Ochiko, like they did every day. You okay, Kazumi? Ochiko asked her friend. I did the worst of the four of us on the midterms, in case you forgot. You didn't do that badly. Ida started before Kazumi cut him off. I ranked number 17. The only people who ranked lower were Aoyama, Ashido, and Kaminari. All three of the others immediately understood her worry. You'll have me to help you study, offered Izuku. And we'll help, too, Ochiko added.
Yes.
We want you to do your best, Kazumi, Ida declared. Thanks, guys. How about we all get together to study this weekend at me and Izuku's place? You and Deku's house. Ochiko and Izuku's cheeks each turned pinker than usual, which Ida didn't notice, but the other girl in their group certainly did. Yeah, it'll be great. That sounds fine to me, Ida agreed. I will await your address. Well, this is our train. Kazumi pushed Izuku onto it while he was mumbling and blushing, something about needing to clean his room and making sure everything was tidy for Ochiko. Once they were on board, she splashed water on his face and he yelped. Turn mumble mode off, please. Sorry, was I mumbling?
Yes.
I know you're head over heels for Ochiko, but you can hang out with her at our house for a day or two, can't you? Of course I can. And I'm not head over heels for her. She giggled. Should I tell him Ochiko likes him back?
Nah.
Not yet. Let him stew in his crush a little longer. It's hilarious. When they got home, Inko had already made dinner, Izuku's favorite, katsudon. So, how is school today, sweetie? She asked Kazumi.
School is fine.
Finals are coming up, and we're going to get together with a couple friends to study. I know how upset you were about your midterm grade. Izuku, you'll help her study, right? Of course. And I'm finally getting the hang of my quirk. That's fantastic. And what about Katsuki? What about him? Yeah. What about Kaken? Inquired Kazumi. Are you still arguing with him? Mom, I'm his rival and primary sparring partner. We're always fighting and arguing about stupid stuff. Well, it's just funny to me that it's been like that since you three were little. I remember Mitsuki, and I used to joke that you and Katsuki were like a married couple with how you argued, and that the two of you were going to date when you got older. What? Kazumi's face turned red, and her hair steamed. Izuku added a notation to Kazumi's page. Water also seems to be heated when she's flustered or embarrassed. I used to think the same thing, Izuku teased. This is payback for your Uraraka jokes. We hate each other. Besides, he's annoying and stupid, and he's always picking on Izuku. It was a joke, honey. Lighten up a little. I know Katsuki isn't your type. You need somebody more level-headed that you just haven't met yet. Thank you. Meanwhile, at the Bakugo household, you still training with Kazumi? Mitsuki asked her son as he practiced throwing punches at his training bag. Of course. She's the only person in our class who can keep up with me. You sure it's not because the two of you act and fight just like a married couple? Katsuki missed a punch to glare at his mother, only to be hit by the bag swinging back around. He smacked it back and growled. Water Witch and I are rivals. Nothing more, nothing less. I hate her, and she hates me, and that's all it's ever gonna be. Fine if you say so. Katsuki was satisfied and returned to working the bag as his mother began to leave. But I'm also saying that the two of you could give Inko and me some pretty cute grandkids. Get out, hag. Once again, he was smacked with his own punching bag. Ochako stepped off the train and onto the platform. She glanced around, trying to find either Deku or Kazumi. Neither of them were immediately noticeable, and she wandered around for a bit, eventually bumping into Ida, who was doing the same thing. Those two are running late, he grumbled. Honestly, they could be more on time. Ochiko's phone went off. Evidently, Kazumi had changed her ringtone again. This time, it was the theme from some old adventure game that had been extremely popular. Something about an ocarina? Hello, she asked. Hey, where are you? I'm at the station. I just bumped into Ida, and we're looking for you and Deku. Well, we're actually outside. Hang on. Go to the information desk and we'll meet you there. Guess I should have been more clear. Sorry, I'll check it. It's fine. You're staying the night, right?
Yep.
Got my overnight bag and everything. Great. See you in a minute. Kazumi and Deku were waiting at the information desk, and Ochako almost choked at the sight of them. Deku wore a white t-shirt and a pair of jean shorts, while Kazumi had a pair of denim capris and a pink shirt. Her yellow purse hung across her body, resting at her left hip. Not exactly how Ochako had thought the two of them would dress outside of school, but it was still nice to see them in a different, more casual setting. You must be more clear with your instructions. Ida admonished Kazumi. Yeah, I know.
Small.
It's not far to the apartment from here. The neighborhood was fairly nice, Ochako noted as they passed through. Not fancy, just nice. Kids played in the park, and one ran up to Kazumi to ask for an autograph. Why do you want an autograph? She asked the little girl, kneeling so they were at eye level. Because you saved a pro hero even though you're still in school, the girl gushed. You're so cool. Well, my friend Ida here ranked in the top 4 during the UA Sports Festival, and my friend Ochako nearly took out Katsuki Bakugo with a meteor shower. Whoa. The little girl looked overwhelmed on who to pick, so all 4 of them, even Deku, who Kazumi cited as being an inspiration as a hero, ended up giving her an autograph, and they continued on to the apartment building where Deku and Kazumi lived. Mom, we're home, called Kazumi as she unlocked the door and opened it. Ochako removed her shoes as Ida did the same, and Deku closed the door behind him. Oh, hello, sweetie. Did you and Izuku find? A woman with green hair came around the corner as she was talking and cut herself off upon seeing Ochako. Her eyes filled with tears, and she smiled. Oh, who are they? These are our friends from school, Deku stated. Tenya Ida and Ochako Uraraka. Mom, are you okay? Kazumi asked worriedly. My babies brought friends home. The woman gushed, running forwards and hugging both her children. Can't breathe. Kazumi gasped. All of you come into the kitchen. I can make you something to eat while you study. She smiled at the newcomers.
I'm Inko Midoriya.
Feel free to just call me Inko. Thanks, Deku told her mother, while Kazumi still looked a little dazed. As Ochako walked towards the kitchen, she saw that 2 of the 3 doors to one side were labeled. One had an All Might sign on it that said Izuku, and the other had a hand-painted sign that said Kazumi in a fancy script with water designs around it. Those must be their rooms. We should begin with our weakest subjects. Kazumi, as you scored the lowest of the 4 of us, you should be the first we work with. Ida explained as they sat down at the table. And math. She mumbled, looking sheepish. Then we shall begin with that. Ochako was better in math than her water-powered friend, so she half paid attention, and instead her eyes were drawn to a picture on the wall. In the picture, A green-haired little boy wearing an All Might onesie was striking a triumphant pose alongside a little girl with hair like water, wearing a rabbit onesie.
Oh, my God.
They were so cute. Other pictures, Deku as a baby and one of Inko hugging her daughter, stuck out to her. But the one that she noticed the most featured Izuku, Inko, and Kazumi standing together in dressier clothes. Deku and Kazumi couldn't have been older than 4, and Kazumi was holding up a certificate of some kind. And there were happy tears in her eyes. Uraraka. She was snapped back to reality by Ida's voice. I said, since you scored next lowest, it's your turn. Sorry. You were looking at the pictures on the wall, weren't you? Kazumi asked. I was. The one of you, Inko, and Deku caught my eye. Kazumi grinned. Our first family photo, Deku said with a smile. That was the day Mom officially adopted Kazumi. That's what the certificate is. That's heartwarming, Ida commented. Your family is certainly close.
Yeah.
Kazumi and I actually met because Kaken was picking on me and she soaked him from head to toe. She didn't even know my name and she was already trying to protect me. And I kept protecting him up until we got to UA, added Kazumi. Then he kind of figured out how to protect himself. Ochako was intrigued by this. Kazumi Midoriya, a girl with little memory of her life before abandonment, left on the streets by a father who saw her quirk as useless, just happened to pick the pocket of a kind woman who took her in as a daughter. And in doing so, that little girl found a brother who supported her and that she could protect, and together they found their way to a much larger group, a group that Ochako was honored to be a part of. Thank you for the food, Miss Inko. No problem, Ochako dear. You and Kazumi enjoy your sleepover. Ida had already gone home, promising to be back the next day to help study more. Deku had disappeared into his room to do something. Ochako wasn't sure what it was, though. So, what do girls do during sleepovers? Asked Kazumi as they sat down in her room. You don't know? I've never had female friends before. I grew up with the boys.
Oh.
Well, I guess we talk about them? Or we talk about something else.
Why?
Is there a particular boy you have your eye on? And no. Nobody. Okay. I already know who it is. She leaned in right by Ochiko's ear and lowered her voice. It's my brother. What? Kazumi pulled away with a smirk. You turn into a stammering mess around him, and you blush so freaking much when he compliments you. It's adorable. What about you? And Bakugo? Not gonna happen. He's an asshole. But he's seemed gentler with you lately. Ochiko, trust me, he ain't gentle with anybody. Especially not me. Ochiko frowned. Apparently Bakugo is dense. I should have figured that. But Kazumi is, too. Later, Kazumi fell asleep on her bed, a book on the history of hero laws dangling from her hand. Ochiko took the book and set it on Kazumi's nightstand, but she was having trouble following her friend's lead. A crush on Deku? She needed some water. Ochiko left Kazumi's room and tiptoed down the hall to the kitchen, where she proceeded to try and figure out where to find a glass in the cabinets. Now, she wished she'd asked Kazumi that earlier, and she was half tempted to wake her best friend up to ask now. Uraraka? She whirled around to see Deku standing there in a t-shirt and exercise shorts. Oh, did I wake you up? She whispered.
No.
I was up studying still. Why are you up? I couldn't sleep. Meanwhile, Kazumi's a freaking rock right now. I know. Just don't wake her up. She hates it when people do that. Ochiko giggled. Where are the glasses? I wanted a drink of water. Oh, here. He reached over her shoulder and opened a cabinet to reveal the objects she was looking for. Their eyes met for a moment, and he retracted his hand quickly, his cheeks flushing slightly in tandem with hers. Thanks. No problem. They stood there awkwardly for a moment before Deku coughed. Well, I'm going back to my room now. Night, Uraraka. Night, Deku. She was back to her thoughts about him, intensified by their interaction. I mean, he's sweet, considerate, strong,
Brave. Smart.
and he's really cute. Damn it. I do have a crush on Deku. What do I do? She'd leave it for another time. That's what. After passing exams, All that was left to do was get ready for the training camp. Kazumi was invited to the school pool along with the other girls, and they were doing stretches when the boys showed up. Apparently, Kaminari had also gotten the boys' permission to use the pool for endurance training. But based on his expression when he saw the girls, she knew that he'd only wanted to see them in their swimsuits, bikinis, not the school swimsuits they had on. "I'm gonna start laps, if you guys don't mind," Kazumi told the girls. "No, go ahead," Ochiko insisted. "Water's your element, after all. Don't even need to come up for air. See you in a little bit." She dove into the pool and disappeared, much to the shock of everyone there. "Did your sister just completely vanish?" Kaminari gasped at Izuku. "She likes to become one with the water while she swims," he replied. "So we're probably not actually going to see her for a while. It's been like that since we were kids. But that also means that trying to beat her in any kind of swimming race is pointless." "You tried it?" Tokoyami inquired. "Nope. I knew I didn't have a shot. But Kaken, he almost drowned trying to beat me, and I had to save his ass." Kazumi poked her head out of the water, making the guys closest to her jump. Only her head was visible, the rest of her body being part of the water. "Damn it, Kazumi," Kaminari yelped. "Geez, sorry. Bunch of pansies." She descended back into the water, disappearing again. Of course, Bakugo chose 20 minutes later to show up and start talking smack to Izuku while Kirishima held him back. The hardening hero also happened to notice that one member of the class seemed to be absent. "Hey, Deku, where's your sister?" "In the pool." "She's doing that damn cheating tactic again," grumbled Bakugo. "Bet I could beat her now that I'm allowed to use my quirk." "Try it, you jerk. I can still kick your ass. You're on, Water Witch." "Oh, boy, here we go."
Seekhead Izuku.
"Who wants to bet she's gonna have to save him from drowning?" Ashido called. Every member of their class raised their hands as Bakugo made his way to the starting block. Kazumi climbed out and got on top of the one next to him as Yaoyorozu made a whistle, which she blew to start the race. And, as predicted, Kazumi was sitting at the other end by the time Bakugo got there. "Damn it. Rematch. Kaken, when will you learn I can't be beaten in the water?" "I said rematch. Damn it." "No, you said damn it rematch. There's a difference. How about you race the other boys? I'm done with swimming for now, anyway." She walked over to the other girls. "Wow, she's something else," Kaminari commented. "Electricity and water don't mix, buddy." Kirishima sighed, patting him on the shoulder. Izuku looked slightly disturbed. The rest of their time at the pool was spent doing races between the boys, with the final one being set up to be Bakugo, Todoroki, and Izuku going head-to-head. But they were stopped by Aizawa, who said their pool time was up. "Oh well, this is going much differently than I thought it would." "You think?" "Shut up and keep walking."
How about you?
"Stop being a bitch." Kazumi groaned at her misfortune. It appeared her luck with partners had run out at finals. She'd gotten Zero as a partner, even though he failed, and now, for the training camp, she'd been paired up with Bakugo of all people. Freaking Bakugo. Meanwhile, her poor brother had been left alone. And then to top it off, some villains found the training camp and set an attack, separating her and Bakugo from literally everybody else. She was lost in the woods with her rival, and he was bitching about it every step of the way. "You know what? You suck at navigating. I don't see you coming up with any suggestions, Kaken. I say we turn around and go back the way we came." Not with the fucking poison gas. We can deal with it later." "What breathing?" Suddenly, a man, if you could call it that, lumbered into view. His mouth was stretched open grotesquely as he made clear his desire for flesh. Kazumi gagged at the sight of him while Bakugo sparked up his hands. "Stay behind me." Flesh. The whatever it was lunged for Bakugo, and the blonde found it difficult to get a reading on him. He was too fast, too unpredictable, and Bakugo felt his arm being grasped as the man lowered his mouth to take a bite and stopped. Frozen. But not like it was when Todoroki used his ice. No, this was unnatural. The man trembled as his fingers were forced off of Bakugo's arm, and he was sent backward into a tree. What the hell? What did I just? He snapped his head to look at Kazumi, who was staring at her hands in horror. I just controlled his blood. Hey, snap out of it. He shook her, but she was too horrified. The thing ran for them again, but this time Bakugo was ready as he blasted the thing's face and pummeled it into the ground with a surge of adrenaline. He then turned his attention back to Kazumi, who was still shaking.
What der witch, small.
We gotta go.
I.
Damn it. He scooped her up bridal style like he'd done at the USJ and started running. I did that. I controlled his body. Oh my god. I can never be a hero. Shut up. That wasn't intentional, and you know it. Unfortunately, whatever the hell the thing had been wasn't done with them yet. It came after them, and Bakugo saw a fire in the distance getting bigger as he ran with Kazumi in his arms. Very narrowly, he dodged the fire and watched it hit the thing, and knew where it had come from. Watch it, icy white hot. You almost hit us. I apologize, Todoroki stated, coming out of the shadows. What happened to Kazumi? Turns out her quirk extends to blood. She got that thing off me, and she hasn't been able to move on her own since. Not too long after, they ran into Dark Shadow, who took down the thing once and for all before Todoroki and Bakugo shrank Tokoyami's quirk down to a manageable size. They met up with Yaoyorozu, Shoji, and Izuku, who was severely injured. Bakugo knew exactly how to snap Kazumi out of her shocked state. Hey, Water Witch. Your dumbass brother got his arms broken again. What? She snapped her head towards Shoji, and Bakugo let her down. Izuku, we have talked about this. Now's not the time, sis. He was trying to protect somebody else, Shoji defended. Mandalay's nephew. And this guy better have broken his arms, or so help me.
He did.
He forced me beyond my limit, Izuku explained. We'd better get moving. Hey, what happened to that weird guy? Oh my, have you not been paying attention? Bakugo growled. He's done.
Oops.
Well, we'd still better get moving and find the others. Suddenly, as she ran, everything went dark. The next thing she saw was Shigaraki. The Midoriya sister is awake. Where am I? She asked, struggling against what bound her. Her back pressed against something warm and firm, her hands kept powerless by the cuffs she was in. You're at our headquarters. And you're not alone. She realized at that moment that she was cuffed to Bakugo.
Great.
My worst nightmare. Thanks, Shigaraki. We have an offer for you too. Both of you have great potential as villains. Between your quirks' more unique properties and his temperament, you could rule all of Japan. What do you say? I have 2 words.
Fuck off.
Fuck off with that bullshit, agreed Bakugo. You really think we're gonna join the league? You've got another thing coming. Well, I must admit you and Miss Midoriya make quite the power couple. We're not a couple, they yelled in unison. Is she really Izuku's sister? Whined a girl with blonde hair. She's so much less cute than him, but her quirk is interesting. Imagine how much blood I could get with her forcing it out of people. Get away from me. Both of them knew they were low on options. So the best one was to work together. Oh, you're awake. Thank goodness. Izuku let out a shuddering breath as he rested his eyes on the members of his class. 5 of them were conspicuously absent. Where's Kazumi? Normally she'd be here, swearing and berating me because I broke my arms again. Everyone looked at each other awkwardly, shuffling their feet. Well, Yaoyorozu's undergoing treatment for her wounds, and Hagakure and Jiro haven't woken up yet. You know what happened to Bakugo. Kirishima stalled. Where's
my
sister? The league took her, too. Ochako blurted. Why? I have no idea. Because she discovered something about her quirk while defending herself against Moonfish, explained Todoroki. She can control human blood while it's still inside a person. That's why Bakugo was carrying her when they found us. She was so horrified by what she'd done that she couldn't move. Kazumi, they must want to use her quirk to control people, but they'll have a hell of a time getting her to cooperate. Especially if Kaken's been captured, too. I'm pretty sure they'll kill each other, sighed Kaminari.
No.
If they have to work together, Kazumi and Kaken actually make a good team. Their quirks complement each other well, and they've known each other long enough to cover each other's weaknesses. I'm more worried about one of them getting killed because they're both so hot-headed. He let out a yell. Damn it. I can't believe. She's protected me since we were little kids, and now I couldn't do the same for her. I failed her. You didn't fail her. We all failed them. I heard Bakugo was in trouble, and I just sat there. Kirishima snapped. If I hadn't, maybe I could have grabbed Bakugo and your sister. An argument broke out among the remaining members of 1A about whether or not they'd use Yaoyorozu's tracking device to go and find Bakugo and Kazumi. Kirishima urged Izuku to come with him for the rescue, while Tsuyu pointedly said that it was a bad idea and they should just wait for the pros to do it. Izuku was too busy thinking it over. I have no doubt that Kaken and Kazumi can take care of themselves for a bit, but they can't use their quirks to cause harm. That puts them at a disadvantage. Then again, Kazumi's been working with Uraraka on hand-to-hand combat. She might just be able to fight off anybody except Shigaraki, but I know he creeps her out to no end. Kaken won't let anything happen to her even though they hate each other. And she won't let him get hurt, either. If anything, they'll stall until somebody gets there to help them, and then book it out of there. They'll probably be in restraints, though, and the League won't be willing to let them go easily. All they can do is try to buy themselves time. I really hope that they do work together, otherwise it'll be a bad scene all around. Still, I think they're gonna need help getting out. Please be safe. Kazumi sighed as soon as she was uncuffed from Bakugo. They remained back to back, though if only because they were trying to make sure they were safe. Bakugo lowered his voice as he whispered to her. You got a plan? Nothing yet. You? Nope. Stall for time.
Yeah.
You two can flirt later. Shigaraki insisted. Focus on her offer. You can easily take over the League working together. And with power like yours, you can take the rest of Japan. Like hell we're joining you, Bakugo yelled, sparking up his hands. Kazumi turned hers to water with the same fire in her eyes as her hair began to steam. Yes, given to that anger. There was a knock at the door. They all looked towards it in confusion. Pizza-la, Kamino store, called a voice from the other side. I didn't order a pizza, muttered Shigaraki. The door blew off its hinges to reveal All Might and several other pros. Kazumi and Bakugo smirked at each other, knowing that they now had an out as Kamui Woods restrained the members of the League present and Kurogiri was incapacitated. Go, she hissed at him. They started to run, but as soon as they did, Kazumi was turned to gray sludge before Bakugo's eyes. Kazumi, yelled Bakugo, his voice racked with desperation as the same happened to him. The next thing he knew, he was kneeling on the ground, coughing as Kazumi did the same next him. She was panting heavily, but he glanced at her and saw that emotion in her eyes that he hated to see on her.
Fear.
All for one, she whispered, her voice raspy. He followed her gaze to see what could only be described as a monster. Katsuki Bakugo. And Kazumi Midoriya. Your quirks will be useful. Don't touch me, she shrieked, launching to her feet and grabbing Bakugo's hand. So, you know of me? All Might explained it to me. You steal other people's quirks and claim them as your own because it's a sick game to you. Bakugo followed her lead as All for One approached.
Come now.
We don't have to fight. I am here. All Might popped up out of nowhere, and All for One let out a sigh. I will deal with you children later. The rest of the League, it appeared, had different ideas. They launched themselves at the two heroes in training, and Bakugo smirked. Cover my back, and I'll cover you. You got it, explosion. Kazumi shot a spray of water directly into Toga's face, making her whine, and then rushed towards them again. When Twice got near them, Bakugo grabbed Kazumi's hand, and they used the centrifugal force of him swinging her to kick the villain back.
Ow.
That hurt, lady. Twice snapped. A most brilliant non-quirk-assisted attack, you two. That guy is Deadpool, I swear to God, muttered Kazumi. On your right. Bakugo snapped. She elbowed the guy who was sneaking up behind her and felt him grab her as she tried to blast him away with a jet of water. Bakugo exploded an attack by the guy's face, sending him flying. Thanks, Kaken. Back to back. She nodded, and they had all their sides covered by pressing their backs against each other. Her hair started to steam. That shit hurts, you know? Bakugo laughed. That's the point. But no matter how much they had covered, it was a never-ending assault from all sides by the members of the League. Both of them were starting to be exhausted, and Bakugo noted that All Might was holding back because they were there. How do we get out of here? Kaken. Deku's voice broke through the air, and the two formerly captured UA students looked up to see what appeared to be him, Ida, Kirishima, and Uraraka flying overhead. An idea came into the explosive blonde's mind, and he grinned. Water Witch, get on my back and hold on tight. Don't let go no matter what. Right. She got onto his back, locking her legs around his hips and her arms around his shoulders, and he chose to ignore how warm she was as he boosted them upwards, away from those who were attacking them. They flew through the air, Bakugo occasionally boosting them until he managed to grab Kirishima's hand and Kazumi grabbed Deku's. You idiots! Bakugo yelled with a smirk. Deku, you should be in the hospital. Kazumi added. They landed a few minutes later, just a block away from a busy district, and Uraraka lost her lunch in nearby bushes. Kazumi patted her friend on the back and held her hair so nothing would get in it. Once that was done, Kazumi felt a pair of arms around her. It was her brother with tears in his eyes and still with bandages wrapping his arms. I'm so glad you're safe, he told her. It wasn't your fault. I was out of it and I got distracted as a result. But hey, that was a great rescue, and I'm cuffing you to your bed at home until your arms heal. Completely. Sis. Just kidding. We have to go meet up with Todoroki and Yaoyorozu anyway. They're here, too? We only found you because Yaoyorozu put a tracker on one of the Nomu at camp. That's how we got to the warehouse. That was a warehouse. Let's move, Ida declared, and they all nodded. Pedestrian traffic had completely halted on the street as everyone watched the giant screens. Kazumi looked up and realized the news was broadcasting All Might's fight against All for One. Her breathing hitched. This was bad. All Might was in his weaker form already. And All for One was the reason All Might had looked for a successor. All for One had made All Might unable to fight like he once had. And she looked to Izuku, who looked horrified. All Might gave one for all to my brother, meaning that he no longer has the full extent of its power, and he's weaker now. He's weaker than he was when he fought All for One last time, but so is All for One. Kick his ass, All Might, she yelled along with the crowd. And then there was smoke and dust and silence. When it cleared, All Might was victorious and All for One was lying on the ground. He'd won. The crowd cheered at the victory of the symbol of peace, but as they began to dissipate, All Might pointed at the news camera that was trained on him. Now, he stated, his voice reverberating through the crowd. I have used the last of what I had left. Now, it's your turn. Kazumi again looked to Izuku and saw tears in her brother's eyes. She knew what All Might had meant, that it was Izuku's turn to be the hero who villains feared enough to stay in the shadows, that her brother was meant to take All Might's place among heroes. And she knew that Izuku was terrified out of his mind. But she'd be there supporting him every step of the way. Are you sure you're okay, sweetie?
Mom, ai fine.
They didn't actually hurt me. I'm sorry, it's just you don't get injured as frequently as your brother, so I worry. Izuku sighed as he listened to his mother and sister talk. After what had happened, they'd taken Bakugo and Kazumi to the police station, and Kazumi had just been cleared to go home by the chief a few hours earlier. And she'd come home to Inko fussing over her instead of Izuku for once. It was understandable, given what had happened, and he knew all his sister wanted to do was get some sleep and hope for things to go back to normal soon. But his talk with All Might had confirmed it. Nothing would ever be the same again. Kazumi's quirk had developed, and she was terrified of it. All Might was officially retired. Izuku's arms couldn't take any more damage, or he'd lose use of them for good. Kamino Ward had been destroyed, the League scattered, and All for One was in prison. But Shigaraki was still at large. Damn it! There was a knock at the door, and Inko stopped fussing over Kazumi long enough to answer it. All Might, she gasped. Izuku bolted upright and saw his teacher in the doorway. Hello, ma'am. There's something I need to speak with you and your children about regarding security at UA. Oh, come in.
Come in.
Kazumi was sitting at the kitchen table, her head down on the wood surface as All Might entered the room. How are you feeling, Kazumi? He asked. Drained, but all I need is some sleep. That's good. Inko led him into the living room and Kazumi followed, sitting down on the couch next to her brother. "What's this about?" she inquired with a yawn. "Well, in an effort to increase security for our students in light of what happened at the training camp, we're implementing a new system at the school. A dormitory system. What I am asking is for you to give permission for your children to move onto campus and live there for as long as they attend school at UA High." Inko was silent. "You should have gotten a notice." "I did." Her voice was unusually cold. "Mom," Izuku spoke up. "I was so proud that both my children got into UA. But since then, Izuku has been getting hurt so much more often than he ever has before. And my daughter, in the past 2 months, has been stabbed, burned, and kidnapped. So, I'm considering pulling them out of UA." "What?" Kazumi yelped, suddenly wide awake. "But Mom, yesterday you said." "I know what I said, but I've been thinking about it, and as much as I want to support you both, I can't keep seeing you get hurt. I can't keep seeing your sister angry with you for your injuries. There are other hero courses out there besides UA." Kazumi bit her lip, and Izuku noted the tears forming in her eyes. He knew the reason she wanted to stay at UA, their classmates. She'd confided in him that Class 1A felt like her family, and that they made her feel like her family wasn't so small anymore. If they left UA, she'd have to start over, and she'd be terrified that she'd lose that new school. 2. "Transfer me out of UA, but let Kazumi stay," he told his mother.
What?
"Izuku." Kazumi gasped. "Kazumi's never had much family besides us. She told me that our classes made her family so much bigger, and I know it would hurt her more to leave them than it would hurt me. So let her stay at UA. Transfer me if you want." Kazumi burst into tears as she buried her face in her brother's shoulder, hugging him at the same time. Inko went over and placed a hand on her daughter, trying to comfort her. "Mrs. Midoriya," All Might stated, catching the attention of the family as he bowed. "Please, allow your children to stay at UA. Your daughter needs her classmates, and Izuku is the one I've selected as my successor. He is to be the next symbol of peace, and there is nobody else who could quite fulfill that role the way he does. I promise I will do my best to take care of him and ensure he doesn't do anything as stupid as he's done previously. And I know Kazumi will help hold me to that." Inko took a deep breath, then nodded. "Okay, they can both stay." Kazumi smiled as she reached her dorm room. Already, the boxes she'd sent of things for her room had arrived, and it was time to unpack. She started with the clothes and hung up her shirts and the 3 dresses she owned in the closet. "Hey, Water Witch," a voice said from the doorway. She looked to see Bakugo leaning against the door frame. "Hey, Kaken. You unpacked already?"
Yeah.
"Didn't bring much. Unlike you." "Well, excuse me for wanting to make this room my own." She puffed out her cheeks as she finished with the box of clothes and reached for the next one. Upon opening it, she let out a gasp. "What's wrong?" "Mom, she packed my photo album." "Your photo album?" He crouched next to her as she held it up. The cover of the album was a dark forest green with a gold spine. From what he could tell, much of the book was filled, and it was precious to her. "She started it when I was little, and she just adopted me. And as I got older, I took over putting in the pictures and made it mine." "Huh." She held it away as he reached for it. "Hey, I'm not gonna burn it. Sorry, but prior experience tells me not to trust you in regards to personal belongings of other people." "Well, see you later then, Water Witch." He stood back up and left the room. She smiled at the album again and put it on her desk before moving on to her bedsheets. Posters went onto the walls, her alarm clock onto the nightstand, and her picture of the day she was adopted went right beside the clock. There were 4 copies of it. One was back with Inko, one belonged to Izuku, there was one in her photo album, and the last one she'd just put on her nightstand. Her room finished, she stood back and took in what she'd accomplished. A knock sounded at her door. "Hey, Kazumi, we're gonna have a coolest room contest with the boys." Ashido called. "Coming." And Kazumi was not really impressed with anyone's room but Todoroki's. Then it was suggested that the girls' rooms be added to the mix, and she found herself hiding her photo album with her body for some unknown reason. At least, until the other girls decided that Kazumi's room was the best place to hold an impromptu sleepover. She reluctantly agreed, and that was how she found herself playing host to her second sleepover ever. Hagakure was the one to find the photo album and suggested they all look through it, which Kazumi agreed to, as well on the condition that the photos not be spread around the dorms. "I remember that picture," Ochiko commented, looking at the first one in the album. It was Kazumi's adoption day photo.
Yep.
The day I had a family for real. I was so happy that I cried, and long story short, I've developed the same crying as Mom and Izuku. "Is that Bakugo?" laughed Ishido, pointing at a picture of a 4-year-old Kazumi and Izuku with a young blonde kid.
Yep.
That was on adoption day, too. His mom dragged him down to the courthouse and made him take a picture with us. We hated each other back then, too. More pictures brought up questions, but most of them were of Kazumi and Izuku. Then Ochiko let out a yelp as she saw one of the pictures. "Oh my god.
What?
Apparently you kissed Bakugo?" Kazumi's eyes widened as she took the album from her friend. Sure enough, there was a picture of her and Bakugo, neither of them older than 5, and she was doing the kind of kiss little kids do when they're trying to imitate adults. Not to mention Bakugo was kissing her back. She screamed in horror. "I don't remember that. Who even took that picture?" "Ah, so you did have a crush on him," cooed Ishido. "No way. That's the kind of kiss little kids do when they're imitating adults. Nothing more, nothing less. It's still super cute. I'm going to murder whoever took that picture." As the pictures got newer and the Kazumi and Izuku in them got older, there was a definite shift in the quality of the pictures. They had better lighting, a more professional look. Some of them were more out of focus than others, and in line with the earlier ones, but the best one was of Kazumi in her middle school uniform, standing by a window as she looked out it. The lighting and way the late afternoon sun shone off her hair was super pretty. "Wow," whispered Tsuyu. "Izuku took that one," Kazumi stated, trying her best to forget the picture existed. "He started getting an eye for photography as he got older. Our mom's a better cook than she is a photographer, so the better ones are his work. Maybe I should ask him to take pictures of me sometime," Hagakure stated excitedly. "He doesn't do it much anymore unless I ask him. And any of those pictures go directly into the album." The last picture in the album featured Izuku with a broken right arm and Kazumi with slight scorch marks, both of them in their gym uniforms. And despite their respective states, they were both beaming huge smiles, and Kazumi was throwing up a peace sign with her right arm around Izuku's shoulders. He had his left arm around hers. "That was after my match at the sports festival. The only time he's ever insisted on getting a picture of us." Ishido set down the book and got up. "What are you doing?"
Small.
"Everybody up. We're heading down to the common room." "Why?" Yaoyorozu asked. "I'll explain when I meet you down there. Right now I'm gonna get the boys." Not wanting to question her further, the girls headed to the common area and were soon joined by the boys and Ishido, who had a camera in her hand. That's when Kazumi knew exactly why they'd been brought down there. "Izuku, Kazumi mentioned you've got some photography skills, so here's the deal. You're getting pictures of all of us together," Ishido stated, throwing her arm around Izuku. "Wait," she did. "Yeah, this is fucking stupid," Bakugo muttered. "I guess I can take the pictures." Izuku took the camera from Ishido, who'd also brought a tripod, and set it up while everyone else arranged themselves on the biggest couch. He then set it on a timer and ran to take a spot, which happened to be next to Ochiko.
Flash.
More pictures were taken that night, and everyone agreed that it had been a good way to mark moving into the dorms. Izuku even took some candid shots of his classmates hanging out as they celebrated. Bakugo was the only person who seemed bothered by something and didn't join in. In fact, he retreated up to his room soon after the initial group photos were taken. Kazumi went to put the group shots in her album when they printed a couple days later, only to find that her album was out of space. She was considering her options on going to buy a new one when there was a knock at her door. Upon opening it, she found the hallway was empty, except for a wrapped package on the floor that she took into her room. It contained a brand new album, this one with the same green cover as the old one, but with a silver spine instead of gold. The school's logo was embossed on the front in gold, though, and it looked custom done. "This is awesome," she squealed. I wonder who bought this. In the hallway, Bakugo heard her squeal and smiled to himself as he walked back to his room. Try it again. Kazumi smirked as water formed an arc around her. Her costume upgrades included tanks for water that fit the design without disrupting it, and that was about it. She hadn't needed much else. Let's see you deal with my volley this time. Bakugo fired off the rounds of explosive shots at her, and she either took them out with well-placed water sprays or doused them completely before they got too close. Right now, they were preparing for their provisional licensing exams, and Bakugo had asked Kazumi to be his sparring partner, as usual. She was willing, if only because it helped her get better control of her water, especially with the tanks providing her a ready supply so she wouldn't accidentally control the blood in his body. Yeah, convincing her that her quirk wasn't evil had fallen to Izuku and Ochako. But she was back to normal now, and fighting as hard as she ever had. Her precision had improved, making her water blades all the more effective at cutting through solid rock. Not to mention her suggestions for improving his explosion attacks. He really hoped she couldn't tell he was holding back a little. He fired off another couple shots, which she dodged with ease and doused. You're getting a little slower, aren't you? She teased. Shut up. Maybe you're getting faster. A few more fired at her, and one flew behind her as she doused the ones in front of her. Horror flooded his veins as he realized what was about to happen, and it happened before he could open his mouth to warn her. She turned to deal with the bomb, and it went off before she could react, sending her flying across the rock.
Shit.
She landed hard, cradling her arm that had been about to douse the ball of fire. Damn, that hurts. He rushed over. How bad is it? He asked. She raised an eyebrow, clearly confused by his concern. Come on. Is it bad, or can you keep training? She held out her right arm, her wrist bent at an awkward angle and an angry red where her costume had burned away. He backed away from her quickly as guilt flooded through him. He'd hurt her. He'd burned her arm and broken her wrist while sparring. His thoughts of self-loathing were interrupted by her sighing. Guess I'd better head off to Recovery Girl, she stated. He took her left hand and helped her to her feet. Damn it, Kakin, it's fine. I fucking burned you and broke your wrist. It's not fine. Look, I'll go to Recovery Girl and she'll fix me up. Good as new. She narrowed her eyes and poked him in the chest with her left index finger. Don't you dare blame yourself for this. It was an accident, plain and simple. There's no reason to beat yourself up. She exited the gym and Bakugo stared at his hands for a moment. He broke your wrist? The girls eyed Kazumi's cast with shock. It was an accident. You should have seen him afterwards. I had to drill it into his head that I was okay and that it was an accident. Okay, and you swear that he's not in love with you? Ochako asked. Please. Kakin being in love with me? We're rivals, and he wants me to stay in top form. This is just the most serious damage either of us has done to each other to date. I'm being serious. Besides, I need somebody more level-headed and less hot-tempered. I'm hot-tempered enough for two people, right? Yeah, you take Deku's hot temper, not your future partner's, Ashido snorted. Besides, Bakugo treats you way differently from everyone else. You know what they say, boys pick on. Mina, I swear to God if the end of that sentence is, the ones they like, I will blast you through a wall. Why? Because it's a toxic idea, and it needs to die. We're in the 22nd century, for Pete's sake. Okay, I'll lay off.
Good.
I'm gonna get some more snacks. She headed out of the room, and the girls looked at each other. How much do you want to bet Bakugo's still beating himself up over what happened? Ashido asked the other girls. I'll take that bet. Ochako agreed with a smile. If you girls want to talk romance and crushes, then how about Ochako and my brother? Kazumi suggested as she walked up with the snacks she'd gone to get. Ochiko's face turned bright red. What? The other girl shrieked. I don't have a crush on Deku. I told you that. Ochako insisted. And my body's not made of water. Kazumi, it was like he'd been smacked in the face. Bakugo stared at the ceiling of his dorm room, watching the fan spin as his thoughts whirled even faster. He couldn't believe it. He had a crush on Kazumi Midoriya. The girl who, upon their first meeting, had soaked him to the bone and yelled at him for picking on Deku. And for years afterward, he'd made fun of her and she'd become his rival. But somewhere along the line, and he still wasn't sure when, his view of her had changed. She was one of the few people in their class who could go toe-to-toe with him and come out relatively unscathed. In combat, she was swift, brilliant, and almost entirely fearless. As a student, despite her midterm grades, she easily ranked up there with Yaoyorozu, Ida, and Deku as one of the smartest members of Class 1A. But he was starting to see beyond that. Her sharp tongue and sass were undeniable, and he found himself missing it when he went a few days without seeing her. She easily ranked as one of the prettiest girls in class too, quite possibly for their year. She was calm and cool-headed when he went on tirades at the dorms, even tossing water on him when he got too heated to calm him down. To Bakugo, though, the most distinctive thing about her was her gentle kindness. Despite his borderline abuse of her over the years, she'd always been there with a bandage when he got into a scrape. She wasn't his rival. She couldn't be his rival anymore. He'd never forgive himself if he hurt her again. He balled his hands into fists just thinking about it. He'd done something horrible to her, and he was having trouble with the guilt. He'd burned her and caused her wrists to break. Damn it, she really can't be my rival anymore. I can't do this. What would he do now? Ignore her? Stammer awkwardly around her like he was fucking Deku and she was Uraraka? There was no way in hell he'd be able to act like he always had around her. Not when he had these feelings. There was also the fact that she had some serious baggage in regards to her dad. She'd mentioned that she'd figured out who he was but refused to divulge his identity because of reasons that she also refused to disclose. If Bakugo had to guess, her father was a pro-hero, most likely in the top 10, and she didn't want to ruin his career when her life had actually turned out for the better because she'd been abandoned. And he'd overheard her talking to Deku, Uraraka, and Ida about the memories she had of her father, few that she could recall. All of them involved the man berating her, insulting her, screaming at her for her quirk, calling her an embarrassment, even hitting her. She was 4 fucking years old when she was adopted. How the fuck can you hit a 4-year-old girl? That enraged him more than anything. Soon as I find out who this bastard is, I'm tracking his ass down and killing him. Now he had to think, when the fuck had he fallen for Kazumi Midoriya hard enough to literally murder her abusive birth father? The training camp, where they'd both been kidnapped. Both of them because they had potential as villains. Him, because of his anger. Her because of an ability she'd found during battle that night. She could control liquids. That included human blood. The horrified look on her face when Shigaraki had praised her for that ability had made Bakugo want nothing more than to break free of his bonds and blow up every single villain there. He had to protect her. That was the job of a hero. And he couldn't protect her if he was the one causing her injuries. She couldn't be his rival anymore, not when it meant he had to fight her. He wasn't sure how to bring it up, though. Hey, Water Witch. You know how I've tortured your brother our whole lives and we've been fighting since we were 4? Well, turns out I've fallen in love with you, so how about we stop being rivals and make out instead? Yeah, that would end with him getting slapped across the fucking face. He'd keep it on the down low for now. He rolled onto his side and found something sticking out of the drawer of his nightstand. It was a paper of some kind with writing on it, one he definitely hadn't put there. He pulled it out and sat up to read what it said. Bakugo, you obviously have a thing for Kazumi, even if you won't admit it. So I grabbed this for you to hold on to so you can stare at her all you want without being called creepy. Don't worry. I haven't told her brother about it. I figured I'd leave that for when you man up and ask her out. Good luck. Kirishima. Bakugo turned it over to see a picture of Kazumi smiling and laughing. Based on her clothes, it was one of the ones Deku had taken the day they moved into the dorms. An involuntary warm smile spread across his face as he gazed at her before he realized what he was doing and threw the picture back in his drawer.
God. Fucking.
Damn it. I always knew she'd be the death of me. I just thought it would be actual murder. What are you saying? I'm saying I can't be your rival anymore, Water Witch. Or do you need to clean out your ears? It was a few days after the licensing exam. All of 1A had passed except for Todoroki and Bakugo, including Kazumi. Currently, though, Bakugo and Kazumi were outside the dorms so that they wouldn't be overheard when they had this conversation. He didn't want to be chewed out by the other 6 female residents for breaking poor Kazumi's heart and being an asshole. Is this about my wrist? Because I told you. That was an accident, and it wasn't your fault. No, it's just we're on different levels now, and you need to fight somebody like Todoroki or something. That's not an answer. It's not a fucking answer. Look, just piss off and stop bugging me. I'm not gonna spar with you anymore. No, we're talking about this. No, we're not. So fuck off. He disappeared around the corner of the building before she could get out another response, and he could hear her scream in frustration. He almost turned around to apologize, but his pride wouldn't let him say the words. Besides, he had to go talk to Deku. About All Might, about Kazumi, about everything. And he'd kick that nerd's ass once and for all. There was a knock at her door as she buried her face in her pillow. "Come in," she called. "Miss Midoriya, All Might has requested you to come down to the common room." She threw off her blankets and put on her sneakers, still frustrated with Bakugo for the bullshit that he'd pulled earlier that night as she headed downstairs and saw All Might standing there, still heavily bandaged and looking concerned. "What's this about?" she asked, crossing her arms. "I'll explain on the way. Come on." She followed him out the door and realized they were heading for ground beta. "So, you gonna explain now? Your brother is in a fight with young Bakugo. You know them both well, and you know the truth about One for All, which is what I think the fight's about. Let me get this straight. Bakugo dumps me as a rival, and not 2 hours later, he gets in a fight with my brother after curfew? What the hell is wrong with him? I'm going to kill them both, I swear."
Ouch.
All Might had never heard her refer to Bakugo as anyone but Kaken, so hearing her spit out his name like he was an acquaintance was slightly unnerving. Young Bakugo better have a good explanation for her. By the time they reached ground beta, Bakugo and Izuku were obviously done with their fight despite the emotions still running high. Kazumi rushed past Bakugo towards her brother, making the explosion hero stare after her in shock. "Hey, sis," Izuku chuckled nervously as she began to check him over. "Shut up. Don't hey, sis me. I'm pissed off."
Sorry.
Damit Izuku. She hugged him, then turned towards Bakugo and marched towards him. Before he could react, she slapped him across the face. No quirk, just her hand. "Hey, you complete fucking moron. What were you thinking? Do you have any idea how much trouble you and Izuku are going to get into?" Izuku and All Might both cringed at her outburst. Yeah, whatever. "You have no idea why I'm so pissed right now, do you?" All Might intervened and explained the situation to Bakugo, everything about One for All and how it was passed down, why he'd chosen Izuku, and even why Kazumi knew the truth. When it was all said and done, Bakugo looked from the Midoriya siblings to All Might. "So, us 3 are the only ones at UA who know the truth. Other than Recovery Girl and the principal, yes." "I got it. I'll keep the secret. Let's get the 3 of you back to the dorms now." Kazumi kept her distance from Bakugo, her eyes trained to the ground as they walked. Izuku and the other boy got into an argument over who would be better than the other, and All Might chuckled. "They've become true rivals," he commented to Kazumi low enough for the boys not to hear over their bickering. "But did he have to dump me as a rival to do it?" she asked in the same low tone. "I don't know who I'm supposed to compete against now." "I don't know either. But you're a smart girl. You'll figure it out." "I know, but..."
Yeah.
"It's rough. How long were you two like that?" "Since we were little kids, I guess."
Ooh.
That's a special kind of ouch. Special kind of ouch is not an expression I thought I'd hear tonight. Well, I didn't think I'd be handling a fight between your brother and your ex-rival tonight, but here we are. Of course, Aizawa wasn't happy when they got back to the dorms. He wrapped the boys in a scarf and started to reprimand them for waking him up and going to an off-limits area to fight. Kazumi stood in the background, listening and enjoying Bakugo getting told off. In the end, the boys were put under house arrest. And Kazumi? She was told to just go back to bed and be ready for tomorrow. Okay, so Mirio seems intrigued by my power, for lack of a better term. How many people can turn themselves into a puddle at will? Izuku laughed. If anything, I'm surprised he still got you when you could escape more easily than any of the rest of us. Well, to be fair, I think the fight was more interesting because I could escape at any time but didn't. She mulled it over in her head. I think he was more interested in how you analyzed his movements than my quirk. I mean, you figured out where he was going to be, and he looked shocked, I tell you.
Ah.
Right. Need your trash, sighed Bakugo, standing next to the couch. Go jump in the bin, then, Kazumi replied. Very funny, Water Witch. I'm being serious. And I'm still pissed at you for your bullshit. What do you want me to say? Are you seriously this fucking dense? You should know what I need you to say. Izuku gulped nervously and backed away from the growing storm. But I don't. And that's the problem. You don't. Know what you did wrong. She stood up. Good night, Izuku. See you in the morning. That's rough, Bakugo, Kirishima told his friend, patting him on the shoulder as soon as Kazumi disappeared upstairs. What did you do? Kaminari asked. I haven't seen her this pissed in a while. Shut the fuck up. Bakugo grabbed the bags of trash and headed outside. When he came back, he stomped upstairs. What did he do to Kazumi? Kaminari asked again. He kicked her to the curb. That's what he did. Ashido snapped. He told her that they were on different levels and she needed to find somebody else to be her rival. That's just cruel, Ida stated. They've been sparring partners ever since they came to UA and rivals since they were young children. And he ended it so abruptly. He couldn't even give her a real reason. How do you know all this? Ochiko inquired. I'm her best friend and she didn't tell me any of it. They had their argument right under my balcony. I really wanted her to just haul off and punch him. It's what he deserved. Izuku sighed as he looked towards the stairs his sister had disappeared upwards on and thought about it. Kaken's been acting weird around Kazumi ever since what happened in Kamino Ward. And he mentioned something about feeling conflicted when it comes to Kazumi, so could it be possible that he of course. He's in love with her and doesn't want to hurt her like he did during that sparring match before the exams. But he won't tell her because his pride is getting in the way. I think all Kazumi wants is an apology for being rude, though. In that case, we run into the same problem. He's not going to apologize because he thinks he was in the right to end things like that. Wait, am I okay with Kaken dating Kazumi? Deku, do you have an idea on how we can end the deadlock? Ochiko asked, sitting down beside him. I think all Kazumi wants is for him to apologize. He was extremely rude to her and sometimes that's all a person needs to hear. I highly doubt he'll do that, Todoroki stated flatly. Look, we should at least try to help them along, if it'll make it easier to live with the two of them, Kirishima told the others. Maybe keep them apart for a while? Kazumi's prepping for the work study and Bakugo's got his extra classes, so that could work, right? Right. Everyone agreed. And so a plan was set in motion. Keep Bakugo and Kazumi apart at all costs until one of them decided to talk to the other. Simple and effective. Since they were little kids, Kazumi and Izuku had been inseparable. Brother and sister. Best friends. The package deal that meant Kazumi was much less popular than she would have been otherwise. They supported each other through everything. They fought because siblings who don't really fight are fictional constructs of an only child, and they argued. Teasing, serious discussions, protecting each other, that was what defined the relationship of the Midoriya siblings. Their bond was strong. It had been tested several times but always came through the fire stronger. When their work studies began, their bond was at its strongest. They were working at agencies near each other and excited to work as heroes to actually fight villains. But what happened with Overhaul? That nearly shattered that bond. And it all had to do with a little girl. And that's what happened. Kazumi was silent for a moment while everyone else looked shocked. But it was his sister's reaction that concerned Izuku the most, namely, that her eyes were downcast and the tips of her hair were steaming. Kazumi, are you okay? You're telling me you gave that little girl back to the Yakuza boss, who was almost certainly abusing her. I didn't have any other options. We're going to concoct a plan. Are you kidding me? She leapt to her feet, knocking over the chair she'd been sitting on and startling Ochiko. Kazumi? No, shut up. She balled her hands into fists. Izuku Midoriya, How stupid are you? Wait, why are you getting so worked up over this? Kaminari asked. The pros will have this handled. None of you are getting it. She slammed her fist down on the table. Bakugo, get in here and calm her down. Kirishima called towards the living room. I'm not doing shit for water which when she's like this, came the reply. Let her get it out of her system. Okay, Izuku. I'm going to give you 2 seconds to give me the location where you found that little girl, or I'm going to be even more pissed. You all can wait for the pros, but I'm going after her myself. Why is this so important to you? Todoroki inquired calmly. Because I know how she must be feeling. The entire class, including Bakugo, who'd come in to see what the hell was going on, was staring at her now. She took a deep shuddering breath and released it as tears began to stream down her face. She's alone.
She's scared.
She's being abused in almost every sense of the word because of her quirk. She feels like she's been abandoned and that nobody can care about her, that she doesn't deserve to have anybody care about her. She's not being cared for properly. I doubt she's ever had a decent meal. And she's probably constantly terrified that one day she'll be pushed too far and she'll die. I know how she feels because that's what my life was before the Midoriyas adopted me. I was abused by my birth father before he abandoned me on the streets as a toddler because I didn't have the quirk he wanted. I was an embarrassment to him, and he tossed me out like trash. I don't know how long I lived on the streets, but I was alone, and I was terrified. I resorted to picking pockets to survive, but even that wasn't enough to keep me from feeling hungry almost every damn day. I got lucky when I happened to pick the pocket of the woman I now call my mother. Who knows, I might have ended up like that little girl if I hadn't. So no, I'm not willing to let another little girl be subjected to what I was subjected to as a child. She held out her hand to Izuku.
Now.
Give me the address. Like hell you're going alone, Kirishima snapped. This is the Yakuza we're talking about. You need backup. I don't see any of you. I'll go. Bakugo was the first to speak up. But you don't have your provisional license, pointed out Ida, looking annoyed. So? This is a rescue mission, not a combat mission. Besides, I kinda owe Water Witch for being an ass to her. I'll go, too, Izuku sighed. She'll recognize me. Ochiko, Todoroki, and Ida volunteered to go as well. The rest of their class agreed to cover for the missing students while they were gone to ensure everything went smoothly on that end. Yaoyorozu even gave them all earpieces similar to those they'd used during their first combat training to improve their communication. And operation. Little rescue was put into motion. Ochiko knelt by the little girl, who was unconscious on the cot within the rather barren cell. Upon reaching the location where Izuku had guessed the Yakuza were holding the little girl, they'd all split up. Bakugo and Todoroki were set as lookouts due to them not having their provisional licenses like the other four. There was a lot of ground to cover, and Ochiko had found the little girl first. Her heart ached at the sight of the bandages and the weak sound of the girl's breathing, but she couldn't focus on that now. The stealth portion had gone well. Right now, she needed to grab the little girl and get the hell out to meet up with the others. Hey, she whispered. The little girl groaned, her red-brown eyes fluttering open. Who are you? She mumbled. I'm a friend of Deku's. We came to get you out of here. Can you get up? She swung her tiny legs over the side of the cot, and her bare feet hit the concrete floor. Her knees buckled and she fell, but Ochiko caught her and cradled her gently. I'm going to carry you, okay? Okay. What's your name? Ochiko. What's yours? Eri. Well, Eri, let's get going. We got company, came Bakugo's voice over the earpiece. Anybody find the kid? I've got her, Ochiko said. She can't walk on her own right now, so I'm carrying her. I'm right around the corner, Deku assured her. I'm heading your way now. And sure enough, when Ochiko left the cell Eri had been in, there was Deku. We need to get out of here, he told her.
Deku, murmura tre.
I'll carry her. You provide us with protection so we can get out. Got it. They started to run through the compound, an alarm blaring as they ran. Evidently, they'd been discovered, and this was bad. Very bad. Eri whimpered and buried her face in Ochiko's shoulder. It's okay, Eri. We'll get you out of here, and you'll never have to see these people again, Ochako whispered. We have an update, Todoroki stated. At least a dozen pros have arrived on the scene, including Endeavor and Eraserhead. Damn it, Kazumi groaned. We're in deep shit now. Language, tsunami, Ida reprimanded. Uravity, Deku, where are you? Before either Deku or Ochako could answer, there was a boom somewhere in the distance. Based on the fact that the guards were nowhere to be found, Ochako guessed that they'd been sent to battle the pros or abandon their posts out of cowardice. Suddenly, water dropped from a drain in the ceiling and then rose from the ground to reveal Kazumi. You've got her, great, the water heroine said. Ida's not too far ahead. We'll sneak out in the chaos of the battle outside. And, miraculously, that went off without a hitch. They managed to leave and get back to the dorms without any of the villains or pros realizing that they were there. Once they were back, Ochako brought Eri back to her room and laid her on the bed. We'll have to keep an eye on her, Kazumi sighed. After everything that's happened to her, she'll be reluctant to trust us for long. Not to mention the nightmares she's sure to have. And you'll have to figure out how to explain this to Principal Nizu, added Ida. Kazumi stiffened. Yeah, I didn't think that part through, did I? Ya think? Bakugo snorted. Eri mumbled in her sleep and turned over. I'll stay with her for tonight, Ochako offered. And I'll take the fall for all of you, Kazumi told the ones who'd gone with her. It was me who pushed you all to go, after all. Everyone left the room except for Ochako and Eri, the door closing behind Kazumi as she gave one last smile to the little girl who slept in the bed. Chako, Eri said, waking up a little. How are you feeling? Warm. Ochako felt her forehead, no fever. And safe. Well, I'm glad you feel that way, because we're not letting you go back to those people no matter what. She smiled gently and brushed Eri's hair back from her face. You're safe. I promise. Eri smiled, a tiny smile that said how grateful she was. Thank you, but won't you get in trouble? You're worth the trouble. She moved to get up, to fix herself a sleeping pallet, but Eri tugged on her sleeve. I don't want to sleep on my own. Okay. You want me to sleep next to you? Aha. Let me just get my pajamas on then. Within a few minutes, Eri was curled up with Ochako and an orange stuffed cat that Kazumi had left outside the door as a present. Ochako. Yes, Eri? Is this what it's like to have a mama? Ochako's heart clenched tightly. You don't remember your mother, do you?
No.
Well, then yes. This is what it's like to have a mama. Then, Ochako? Will you be my mama? Once again, the gravity heroine's heart clenched. Her mind told her to say no, but her heart said yes. And her heart won out. How could it not after everything Eri had been through in her short life? I got lucky when the Midoriyas adopted me. Kazumi's words from the beginning of the year echoed in Ochako's head. Yes, Eri. I'll be your mama, as long as you need me to be. K. Night, mama. Night, Eri. Ochako turned out her light and let herself fall asleep next to her new daughter. While I don't agree with what the six of you carried out several nights ago, it was undoubtedly effective, Principal Nizu stated bluntly to the students in front of him. Blame me, sir, Kazumi sighed. I was hot-tempered and I couldn't. I'm aware of your background, Kazumi, and I know that you couldn't sit by and let a child be subjected to the same atrocities you were. We were able to apprehend much of the Shy Hasaikai that night, including the man known as Overhaul, and we have no doubt they'll be put away for quite a long time. Sir, what about Eri? Asked Izuku, stepping forward. She's grown attached to Uraraka already. She even calls her mama. Then, for your punishments, I will let Eraserhead decide them. Given that Uraraka has already formed that bond with the child, began Aizawa, stepping forward, she will be in charge of caring for Eri for as long as she remains here. Mr. Midoriya, I'm putting you on that front as well. As for the rest of you, you're all under house arrest for the next week. I'll allow you to attend classes, but that is as far as I'm willing to go. The four of you will be in charge of keeping the dorms clean. I'm sure Bakugo can show you the ropes. Thank you, sir, Ida replied, shaking. We deserve to be expelled for what we've done. You saved a child from a horrible situation. Despite acting against the rules, you acted like heroes in how you aimed to carry out your plan. I'm willing to be a little lenient. Now get going. You have a lot of work ahead of you. Yes, sir. All 6 replied, heading for the door. Out in the hallway, Eri was waiting with Recovery Girl. Her bandages had been replaced, and her color looked much better than before. Mama, she cheered, running straight for Achiko. What did the principal say? He told me that I have to take care of you, for as long as you're with us. And Deku has to help me.
Oh.
She smiled at Deku. So you're my papa. Both Izuku's and Achiko's faces turned bright red as they looked at each other awkwardly. Kazumi burst out laughing, leaning against the wall, so she wouldn't fall over. Bakugo did the same while Todoroki remained as stone-faced as ever and Ida looked annoyed at Kazumi's outburst. There is nothing funny about this. No, sorry, just their reactions were priceless. Kazumi choked out. God, I wish I had a camera so I could show them. Let's get back to the dorms. Izuku insisted, his face still bright red.
Yes.
You have to take care of my niece. Kazumi agreed, still smirking. What's a niece? Eri asked as they walked along. Well, your papa is my brother, which makes me your aunt. And you're my niece because you're my brother's daughter. Oh, in fact, why don't you think of everybody in the dorms as your aunts and uncles? Okay. Eri looked excited, but Kazumi knew that kind of excitement. It was hesitant, reluctant to trust and be genuine. Like everything good might be taken away in an instant, and she needed to keep her guard up. Once back at the dorms, Kazumi and the 3 boys assigned to house arrest got to work on their punishment. Meanwhile, Achiko and Izuku focused on showing Eri around her new home while discussing things like sleeping arrangements and care schedules. After all, they were being allowed to carry on with their work studies for the week that Kazumi and Ida were banned. They also introduced her to the other members of 1A, all of whom almost immediately fawned over the little girl. She stuck to Achiko's leg until her mama assured her that they were nice people and shot her classmates a glare that said, "Be less in your face with her." She's going to need new clothes. Izuku sighed as Eri hesitantly began to talk to Kirishima. I'm sure my parents have some of mine from when I was her age, Achiko mused, but Izuku was already going into mumble mode. Clothes for kids are fairly inexpensive, so we should be able to buy most of it with earnings from our work studies. I could ask Mom for me and Kazumi's old clothes, but I'm pretty sure she gave a lot of it away to charity. It wouldn't be fair to ask the others to help pay for Eri's stuff when she's our responsibility. Oh, but she needs more than clothes. She needs kid stuff like toys and books to keep her occupied, so she doesn't get bored. And if she's going to have her own room in the dorm, she'll want to decorate it, which adds another expense. Kazumi sighed and splashed water on her brother's face. Sorry, he yelped. Eri giggled. Listen, how about you go see Mom and explain the situation to her? And bring Eri and Achiko with you, too. I'd go, but I have what's going on here. Gee, good idea. I'm sure she'll be thrilled to know she's a grandmother. Kazumi went back to cleaning, and Izuku sighed. How do you feel about seeing my mom again, Uraraka? He asked. I'd love to see her again, but I think we need to take Eri to get some clothes first. OH, squealed Ashido. Let me come, too. I'd love to find my new niece some cute clothes. How about you and Ashido head out, and I'll stay here to set up a room for Eri?
Izuku suggested.
Good plan. Kazumi watched Ashido and Achiko check Eri's size, and then, as they took the little girl outside the dorm, she smirked at her brother as everyone else dissipated to go back to their rooms or whatever. So, you gonna tell Achiko how you feel now? What are you talking about?
Simple.
You two are raising a child together. Don't you think her parents should have a loving relationship? Kazumi, she likes you back, you know. What? Achiko, she likes you too. How long have you known?
Oh.
Since before finals last semester. Why didn't you tell me? Because it was funny to watch you two turn into stammering idiots around each other. But now it's kind of getting old, and I'd like to move the romance along for the sake of my niece.
Oh.
Izuku was red-faced. Nervous? Extremely. Izuku. She grabbed his hands. Remember the breathing exercises I found for you?
Do them now.
He took a deep breath, held it in for a few seconds, then breathed out slowly. As usual, his nerves began to feel a bit calmer. Better? Better. Thanks, Kazumi. No problem. Lucky you gets to play with a little girl, while I'm stuck with Bakugo in the dorms for a week. Izuku internally hissed in sympathy for Bakugo. She really is still furious at him. It's been a while, though. Good luck, sis. I need all of it that I can get. It was decided that Eri would have the room across the hall from Ochiko, and Kazumi, close enough so that she could run to them if she needed them. This turned out to be a good thing a couple nights later when Kazumi went to check on her and found her niece having a nightmare. She quickly shook her to try and wake her up, which worked, and Eri awoke with a start. Hey, Aunt Kazumi? Hey, little bit. You're okay. It was just a nightmare. Mama and Papa love me, right? Right. And none of you would ever leave me, right? Eri's eyes filled with tears. I keep thinking you're gonna realize how bad I am and you're gonna send me back to Chisaki.
Eri, no.
Of course, we're not going to do that. Izuku and Ochiko appeared in the doorway. Nobody here will abandon you. You're a very beautiful and smart little girl who just got a bad set of people to raise you at first. But you got lucky and you now have a mama and a papa and lots of aunts and uncles to help take care of you and be there for you when you need them. Promise. Promise. Now, time to go back to sleep, Ochiko added, coming to sit next to Kazumi on the bed. I've got it from here. Thanks, Kazumi. You're welcome. Izuku smiled as Kazumi passed him. He could remember when they were little, and their mother had said something very similar to Kazumi after a nightmare. His sister had come full circle now, helping another little girl who'd come from a bad situation. Can I talk to you? He asked.
Sure.
About what? He went with her to her room, and they sat down on her bed. It's about your birth father. You said you figured out who he is?
Yeah.
At the sports festival, when Todoroki told you his story, I was around the corner listening. And then during your match, I saw Endeavor, and it triggered a memory in my mind. Wait, are you saying?
Yeah.
It wasn't a clear memory, but I could see Endeavor and a boy with half red, half white hair. The boy was trying to protect me. I recognized him, even though it's been over a decade since we were separated. Kazumi, I know what my name was now. I was Kazumi Todoroki. Izuku blinked at his sister's admission. Oh my god. He sat back, staring at her. I couldn't believe it either. It's so bizarre. But I knew as soon as I saw the hair it was Shoto. Are you going to tell him? He hates our father enough. And if this gets out, it's likely I could ruin Endeavor's whole career. Besides, I don't have any evidence, so I'll likely be seen as a scammer who's trying to get money. But what about DNA testing? You know what kind of hero Endeavor is. He's worked for so long to get to the top, and he's not going to let there be a chance of a scandal. She smiled. Besides, I have you and Mom for family. No need to go digging up the past when it's been over a decade since I was abandoned. Then what about the others? The others? Todoroki has a few brothers and at least one sister, not to mention his mother. Don't you think they'd like to know what happened to you? She bit her lip. Maybe. But I don't know how to bring it up. Where would I even start? This is big news, Kazumi. You're a Todoroki. I'm a Midoriya. That's the family that raised and loved me, and that's the family I belong with. Izuku gave her a hug, which she gladly reciprocated. You're the brother I grew up with and the one I care about most. If I ever tell Shoto, I won't have the memories with him like I have with you. I won't have the same bond. He's still your brother.
Yeah.
Outside the room, however, Shoto Todoroki was frozen. He'd stopped by Kazumi's room to have a talk with her about a sparring session to help her with temperature control when he heard her talking to Izuku. And when he'd heard her say that Endeavor was her father, he hadn't been able to move or speak. A rainbow of emotions went through him: rage, fear, confusion, sadness, and even a little bit of joy. He had another sister. A sister who'd been abandoned on the streets by their father because her quirk didn't measure up to what he wanted. A sister who'd been adopted by a family who loved her, and one who was able to compete on his level. So much about Kazumi suddenly made sense. Her thermoregulation, for instance, must have been a result of their parents' quirks. There was also her water hair, which could easily have been melted ice. Even her memories, the ones he'd heard tell of anyway, matched up so well with his own. Of being beaten, abused, and comforted by their mother. Of being afraid of their father. Except their father had abandoned Kazumi. A memory flashed through his mind. Your quirk is useless to me, you little embarrassment. 3-year-old Kazumi landed hard on the floor, crying out and holding her cheek after Endeavor had slapped her so hard. She stared up with those ice-blue eyes, full of tears of pain as she whimpered. Father, stop! Shoto yelled, running forward and standing in front of his sister.
Stand da Siede, Shoto. No.
A hero protects those in need. He gave his father a look of defiance. And Kazumi needs me. Asked Shoto.
Kazumi whimpered.
Endeavor let out a scoff and turned. You're showing weakness for a useless person, son. You'll have to learn to get over that someday. He left the room and Shoto turned to face his sister, who was still crying as she held her cheek. Let me see. She moved her hand. There was a red mark where Endeavor had slapped her, but it wasn't a burn. It was just a mark. Nothing more, nothing less. Shoto, I'm scared. Why does father hate me? He doesn't hate you. He says I'm an embarrassment. He hugged her tightly. You're not an embarrassment, Kazumi, their mother said in the doorway, crossing the room and kneeling to hug them. You and Shoto have amazing quirks that you can use together. You're two sides of the same coin. It's all because you're twins. And I love you both very much. I love you too, Mommy. Kazumi sobbed, burying her face in Rei's shoulder. And Shoto, your sister will need you. Please take care of her. He balled his hands into fists.
She's my twin.
We're two sides of the same coin. And father, he'll pay for this. He knocked on Kazumi's door and heard her soft footsteps crossing the hardwood. The door opened to reveal her face, and he realized just how much she looked like their mother. Oh, hey, Todoroki, she greeted him brightly. What's up? I wanted to work with you on your quirk tomorrow. On your temperature control.
Sure.
Sounds great. See you tomorrow. Good night. She closed the door, and he backed away before heading back towards his own room. Why couldn't I tell Kazumi the truth? He muttered to himself. I'll tell her tomorrow while we're sparring. As he talked to himself, he passed Bakugo in the hall. The explosive blonde heard him say that and whirled around, but it was too late. Todoroki had disappeared into his room, and Bakugo was alone with his anger and the lingering words. Icy hot water, which is mine. But I can't tell her. She hates me as it is. Maybe she's better off with a guy like him. Somebody who won't break her wrist while they're sparring or treat her like garbage when he's pissed off at himself.
Yeah.
She's better off with Todoroki. Todoroki was waiting for her in the gym by the time she got there. He looked bothered by something, his normally calm demeanor rather more impatient than usual. Hello, Kazumi, he greeted her. Hey, Todoroki. He sighed. Before we begin, I have something I need to tell you about. What is it? I heard you speaking with Izuku last night, about your memories. She blinked, a look of horror spreading across her face. Why, you heard?
Yes.
And it triggered something, a memory. I remembered protecting you from our father, and our mother telling us we were two sides of the same coin, because we're twins. So, I'm not just your brother, Kazumi, I'm your twin. Oh my God. She was shaking as her knees gave out, and he crouched beside her. We're twins. Holy shit. I asked you to meet me here today, because I want to bring you somewhere else. And now that neither of us are on house arrest, we can leave campus. He helped her to her feet. Everyone else is out of the dorms today. Let's head back and prepare. Prepare for what? For you to meet our mother. Her eyes filled with tears. I know that Mrs. Midoriya has done a wonderful job raising you, and that she will the woman you always think of as your mother, but I believe you should meet the one who gave birth to us.
Okay.
She sniffed, the trademark, Midoriya tears running down her face. Back at the dorms, she put on a dark blue skirt and a pale blue blouse, tying her hair into a half braid. Todoroki was ready for her in the common room, and they set out. She had no idea where their mother was or where they were going, but Todoroki wasn't the type to pull tricks on her like this. That was more a Bakugo move than anything else. But when they arrived at the hospital, she was filled with dread. What are we doing here? After you were abandoned by our father, things got worse for Mother. She poured boiling water on my face and Father had her sent here to get better, when really, he was furious she'd harmed his precious heir. And the only reason she even did it was because my left side was unbearable to her. Todoroki. Shoto. I feel uncomfortable with you calling me by my family name when you're my sister, so please call me Shoto. All right then. Shoto. Will she even recognize me? Perhaps. They say a mother never forgets. You got that from the sequel to that dragon movie we watched last dorm movie night. It was a thought-provoking film. He pushed the button for the elevator and Kazumi felt herself tense as they rode it upwards. The feeling remained as they approached a room labeled R. Todoroki, and she paused for a moment. I don't know if I can. You can do this, Kazumi. Just allow me to go in first and prepare her. All right. He entered the room and his mother's face lit up. Shoto. I wasn't expecting you back so soon. I wasn't expecting to return so soon, either. But something has happened. Mother, did I ever have a twin sister? Rei's face fell. Why you did? When you were young. Why? I found her. Or, we found each other. The door opened and Kazumi walked in. Rei's eyes filled with tears. Kazumi? Hello, Mother. Rei shot up and wrapped her arms around her youngest daughter, gasping for breath. Oh, my baby. I never thought I'd see you again after what happened. You mean after Father abandoned me? Her voice was quiet and Rei nodded. I was so furious with him. That was shortly before I did what I did to Shoto. It was my breaking point. Father will pay, Todoroki stated. Not now, but perhaps sometime in the future. Precisely. Kazumi, how has your life been up to this point? I lived on the streets for a little while after Father abandoned me. I ended up picking pockets to try and survive. A woman whose wallet I took ended up adopting me as her daughter, if you can believe that. And she's done a wonderful job. She also has a son our age, Izuku. So you're a Midoriya. Shoto speaks very highly of your adoptive brother. I'd love to meet the family that took you in. And I'm sure Mom would love to meet you. This is gonna be rough. Deku, I've met your mother before. I mean explaining to her how I became a father at 16. Eri smiled up at him gently and squeezed his hand. She'll love Eri, I'm sure. How come Aunt Kazumi didn't come with us? Eri asked. She was sparring with your uncle Todoroki today.
Oh.
Okay. Izuku took a deep breath as he hit the button for his floor. Ochako was standing by him, and there was an awkward silence as they went upward. Listen, Green Brother, you just need 20 seconds of courage. 20 seconds of embarrassing bravery. And I promise, you can use those 20 seconds to do anything you need to do. Kazumi's words from a few days earlier rang in his head. Not yet. If everything goes well today, I'll take your advice. Okay, now listen, Eri, he told his daughter, kneeling so they were at eye level. Your grandma doesn't know I'm your papa yet. So, if she starts to freak out, don't take it personally, okay?
Okay, Papa.
Eri gave him a thumbs up. Izuku smiled and stood up, unlocking the door with his key. Mom, he called. Is that you, Izuku? Inko called back. Yeah. And I brought guests. Footsteps approached and Inko appeared at the end of the hallway. She smiled at the sight of Ochako, but became confused upon seeing Eri. Who is this? Well, remember how Kazumi got in massive trouble for going on a rescue mission against the Yakuza?
Yes.
I had a lengthy phone call with your teacher when that happened. This is Eri. She's the one we rescued. I was on that mission too, and so was Uraraka. And we were the ones who got Eri out of there. Long story short, added Ochako sheepishly, our consequence was different than Kazumi's. We were put in charge of taking care of Eri, so they're my mama and papa, cheered Eri, clapping her hands. Inko blinked, then her eyes began to fill with tears. That's adorable. So that means I'm a grandmother? Yeah, Izuku confirmed. Within 10 minutes, Inko had pulled out quite a few of Izuku and Kazumi's old clothes, including their old onesies. Eri's eyes lit up at the warm clothes as she dashed into the bathroom to try each of them on, coming out looking more and more adorable. Thank you, Grandma, she squealed. Sorry for the trouble. Ochako laughed. It's no trouble. After all, the whole reason I saved these clothes was because I knew Izuku and Kazumi would both have children one day. I just wasn't expecting it so soon. She paused. Where is Kazumi? She's training with one of our classmates today, Izuku explained. But she did say that she's sorry she didn't come with us. I heard about her fallout with Katsuki from Mitsuki. Is she okay? She has Todoroki for a sparring partner now, but she's still mad at Kaken. As for him, I don't think he's dealing with it well. I've always thought that he cared about her deep down. Maybe that's why it happened, because he didn't want to cause her to get hurt. That's exactly what I thought. Kazumi insisted that it was because he wanted to be Deku's rival instead, added Ochako. But my thought is that Bakugo cares about her, because he's in love with her. But whenever you bring it up, she starts acting like it's disgusting. Inko laughed. Exactly. Ochiko's phone started going off. Oh, sorry. I've got to take this. She headed into Kazumi's room so she wouldn't be rude and answered the call. Hello. Hi, sweetie, came the voice of her mother.
Mom?
Why are you calling? Well, your father and I are in town, and we wanted to have lunch with you. Is there any chance you could meet us at the American Diner by the Courthouse station? Yes, I could. There's something I need to talk to you both about anyway. Would you mind if I brought somebody with me? Of course not. We'll be there at 1. Can't wait. Love you. I love you too. She exited Kazumi's room. Well, Inko, my parents have invited me to go to lunch with them. I'm sorry that I can't stay. It's fine, sweetheart. Besides, don't your parents need to meet your daughter, too? She looked at her son. And Izuku. Izuku suddenly felt himself sweating nervously. It's fine. You're going to meet the parents of your best friend, who you have a crush on. 20 seconds of courage. You can do this. Actually, Mom, could you watch Eri for a minute? I need to talk to Uraraka about something. Sure. Inko looked happy, but also gave her son a look that said, watch yourself. Ochako followed Izuku into his room where he closed the door. 20 seconds. You've got this. Uraraka, we've known each other for over half a year now, he started. And we've been through a lot together. I met you and my first thought was, holy whoa, I talked to a girl, even though Kazumi pointed out that I didn't actually talk. And you were so nice, and on the first day of class, I saw you again, and I thought you looked good in your uniform. And in your hero costume. Okay, so you look good in everything. You're so smart and strong and brave, even if you think you aren't. And that's why I like you, Uraraka, and I want you to be my girlfriend. Ochako was silent for a moment. Oh, crap, I blew it. She's going to think I'm totally weird or that Kazumi dared me to say this or something. I ruined everything. You, all like me? He looked at her face and noticed her eyes were tearing up.
Y.
I think you're an amazing person. But I understand if you don't feel the same way. I mean, I'm kind of plain looking and my hair's always messed up, and I'm always mumbling. I never have my act together. I can barely control my quirk. My sister's way tougher than I am. He felt her hands on his cheeks. They were warm and soft, but slightly roughened where her pads were.
Deku.
I don't care about how you look or how messed up your hair is. The mumbling is actually really cute to me. And you're more together than I am most of the time. Having control over your quirk is something you've been working hard on since the beginning of school, and you're plenty tough enough. I fell for the amazing person you are, not any of those other things, because you always inspire me to be my best. Wait, fell for? I'd be happy to be your girlfriend, Deku. She hugged him, and he was still in shock before he hugged her back. I know my 20 seconds are up, but damn it, I'm adding 5 more. In one movement, he tilted Ochiko's head up and pressed his lips against hers. She kissed him back, electricity sparking through them and filling both with warmth. When they broke apart, all they could do was stare at each other for a moment. So, should we tell Eri? He chuckled.
Yeah.
Ochako smiled. And maybe Kazumi, too. She's been teasing me about this for months. Same here, actually. She actually told me this trick called 20 Seconds of Courage, where I do something embarrassingly brave and give myself 20 seconds to do it. We'll have to thank her. Mom, Daddy, I'd like you to meet Izuku Midoriya, my boyfriend. Izuku stiffened upon seeing Ochiko's parents. They were eyeing him with a look that said they were silently judging him to see if he was good enough for their daughter. Pleased to meet you, he blurted, his face heating up. Well, don't just stand there, her mother stated. Sit down. The two teens and Eri obeyed. Eri was still wearing Izuku's old All Might onesie and looking adorable as ever. Mrs. Uraraka insisted that Izuku call her Aya, while Mr. Uraraka wanted to be called Mr. Uraraka. Both of them were as taken with Eri as Inko had been, and they were delighted to be grandparents. So, you're in the hero course? Mr. Uraraka asked Izuku. Yes, sir. I actually met your daughter during our entrance exam. He's the one who took out a giant robot with one punch to save my life, Ochiko added. I know he's going to be the #1 hero someday. Really now? Papa's the best, Eri declared. He reads me bedtime stories, and he always makes sure to spend time with me and Mama and everybody else. Sounds like you've got quite a catch there, sweetie, Aya told her daughter with a big smile. Mom, Ochiko blushed, and her and Izuku matched in how red their faces were. Aunt Kazumi says they're both awkward dorks when it comes to each other, Eri informed her grandparents. And that's why they turn red a lot. Aunt Kazumi? My sister, Izuku explained. She's, the one who convinced us to be together. Well, you'll owe her a thank you then. I do, because Ochiko and Eri are the best things to ever happen to me. The Uraraka couple looked at each other and nodded their approval of their daughter's boyfriend. At the dorms that night, everyone was studying for a quiz they'd be having the next day. Or at least, the ones who wanted desperately to pass were studying. Otherwise, they were screwing around with video games or talking about whatever had happened that day. It was Ashido who noticed Ochiko, and Izuku sitting very closely, much more so than usual. She crept over, trying not to be noticed, and looked to see that they were holding hands and talking very quietly as they studied. Her eyes widened, and she backed away quietly before signaling to the rest of the class to come over. They did, and were as shocked as her. Guess the 20 seconds worked, huh? Kazumi commented, which made her brother and his girlfriend look up. Thanks, sis. 20 seconds? Kaminari repeated. 20 seconds of courage. Take 20 seconds and just do something embarrassingly brave to see what comes of it. So, you're together now? Hagakure inquired. Yes, we're together, Ochiko replied. The entire class erupted in applause and cheers for the new couple, including Eri, who'd already known. Bakugo was the only one who didn't. Deku told Roundface how he feels, and he's a nerd.
How come I can't do the same thing?
Because she's with Icy Hot. That half-and-half bastard. He trudged back up to his room and flopped onto the bed, opening up the drawer of his bedside table to take out the picture of Kazumi. I screwed up. Sorry, Water Witch. Uncle Kaken? He looked up to see Eri in the doorway. Hey, Pipsqueak. What's up? I saw you leaving and I wanted to come check on you. Are you okay?
I'm fine.
You should go back with your parents. If you're fine, then why are you staring at a picture of Aunt Kazumi? He gasped slightly and hid the picture under his pillow, but it was too late. His niece had seen it. Okay, fine, but don't tell her. Why? Because she hates me. I screwed up with her before you got here, and she's hated me ever since. If she finds out about this, it'll be worse. Papa says you and Aunt Kazumi were rivals until you ended it because you cared about her and because you hurt her by accident and you didn't want it to happen again. That's exactly what happened. I really like your aunt, but she's not going to give me the time of day. Use the 20 seconds of courage. What's that? It's what Papa used to make Mama his girlfriend.
Huh.
I'll look into it. Thanks, Pipsqueak. Eri smiled and Bakugo sighed. Easier said than done.